He will be a staff for the righteous with which for them to stand and not to fall. And he will be the light of the nations and the hope of those whose hearts are troubled. All who dwell on the earth will fall down and worship him, and they will praise and bless and celebrate with song the Lord of spirits. 1 Enoch chapter 48, verses 4 through 5. The modern world doesn't acknowledge, but is nevertheless haunted by spirits, angels, demons, and saints. In our time, many yearn to break free of the prison of a flat, secular materialism, to see and to know reality as it truly is. What is this spiritual reality like? How do we engage with it well? How do we permeate everyday life with spiritual presence? Orthodox Christian priests, Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung, host this live call-in show focused on enchantment in creation, the union of the seen and unseen as made by God and experienced by mankind throughout history. Welcome to the Lord of Spirits.
Greetings, giant killers, dragon slayers. You are listening to the 128th episode of the Lord of Spirits podcast. Some say it's gone on too long. Nevertheless, I'm Father Andrew Stephen Damick, and with me is the only ancient faith radio podcaster ever to have been featured as a photograph on the wall of multiple restaurants in northeastern Pennsylvania, Father Stephen DeYoung. And we're not live. This is our annual...
You can still call in, though. You just see what happens.
You always invite people to do that, but I'm not sure that anyone has bothered.
Yeah. Well, how would we know?
How would we know? That's right. The phones just ring and nothing happens.
Yeah, especially this is going to be Thanksgiving. I don't think anybody's going to be sitting around. Yeah. Are you going to do that to somebody as one of the higher-ups of ancient faith? Are you going to make some poor sap, just sit in the studio?
I mean, there is someone we could do that to. None other than the great Mike Turducken DeGan, who's not going to be taking your calls probably, unless I send him off to do that. I bet he obediently would do it too. Maybe I should try.
That's just sad.
But this is our annual Thanksgiving pre-record, following in the footsteps of the Great Giants episode in 2020. Last time we talked about Mithraism, and it turns out that there is a hunger among our listeners for the lurid details. Lurid details.
Yes, we do mean lurid.
Yeah, that's not a joke this time. Lurid details of ancient mystery cults. So during this pre-recorded episode, we're going to be ruining everyone's Thanksgiving dinner by talking about mystery cults in general, along with some specifics. And to strike a very serious note, this is a parental advisory, everybody. So we recommend listening to this one yourself before you let any minors listen to this, because it turns out that ancient mystery cults are gross in a lot of really disturbing ways. But you
also could just man up and just straight up be like, hey, relatives who I never see who are here for Thanksgiving, listen to this great podcast I love.
There you go.
And play them this as their introduction.
True. And the great thing is it'll be airing at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So it could just ripple across the country depending on when you guys eat Thanksgiving dinner. So.
Well, it wouldn't actually ripple across the country, Father Andrew, because the way time zones work is that 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern are the same time.
That's what I'm saying. Is it yes.
So it won't ripple. It's going to be playing simultaneously across all 4 time zones.
That's true, I guess. But there is I think there's a 3-second delay. So.
For all of them?
I think so. Yeah, so it's simultaneous.
So then that isn't affected either.
Yeah.
You're not having a good day so far, Father.
I know. I mean, the truth is the people in California do hear it actually slightly later than those who are in Ohio. Because it does take longer to get through the wires, but not a lot longer.
The system of tubes.
There you go, the tubes. So, yeah, we are talking about mystery cults. There are some lurid details, but we're not talking about them for the lurid details. We're talking about them because this is actually a significant piece of the context of the ancient religious world. And also, it turns out that there are some specific tie-ins with the Bible, with Christianity, as always with this show. But, typically you're going to have to wait to get those until the very, very end. But we are, unlike as is our normal wont, we're actually going to start by talking about mystery cults in the first half, right?
Yes, we are actually going to be talking about mystery cults.
So
not their relationship to Christianity, but mystery cults as such, right here at the beginning.
Right. So the question
we will begin at the beginning, a very good place
to start. That's right. So this question we should begin with, though, is, so what exactly is a cult? I think that when we talk about mystery cults, probably people, they just immediately kind of impose the modern idea of that word cult onto...
Yes. Well, even modern idea and popular idea are not identical.
Yeah. It turns out that there's, like, I think that when most people say the word cult, what they mean is a religion that I think is weird. And maybe especially has some kind of character.
Or maybe is weird.
Leader. Yeah, right. Well,
I mean, Marshall Applewhite was a little bit of a weird dude.
Yeah.
Just objectively.
I mean, people call us a cult, and what they mean by that is I find Orthodox Christianity weird.
Yeah. But they're wrong.
It's not weird. It's
and I'm right about Marshall Applewhite.
Deeply normal. But also I think it's probably useful to note that if you've ever studied, and most people haven't, because why would you? If you've ever studied sociology of religion will, they have 4 words that they use to define religious groups: church, denomination, sect, and cult. And there's 2 criteria by which they judge this. There's the criterion of what is the relationship of the group to the wider society? Is it good or bad? Does the group see itself as exclusively true or not? And sociology of religion defines a cult as a group that has a bad relationship with the wider society, but doesn't see itself as exclusively true. So that might be useful to you in some contexts. But again, it's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah. But that deviates from sort of the common usage in that a lot of things like Heaven's Gate cult that I was just bringing up, or the Branch Davidians, or whomever would make claims of exclusivity.
Yes. In the sociological context, they would use the word sect to refer to those exclusive groups. Yeah.
But we commonly, beyond just weird, right? There are certain, again, non-professional, in the sense that cult is in cult of personality, right? Yeah. Like Mussolini or Gandhi. Anyway, where I
didn't think we'd have a living color reference right here this early in the episode, but here we are. You have the, or was it a CM Punk reference? See, people don't even know now. The idea that you have some leader, right, a cult leader, right, and that's often a huge factor in the popular usage, is that there is some guy who everybody's following. Yeah, and there's
part of what makes it a cult.
Controlling aspect often,
yes, like cutting people off from the outside world, being insular.
Right. Yes.
So,
okay, now if you find...
And all cults, as we've said before, inevitably become sex cults in that usage of the word cult.
True. And it turns out that that's also true about a lot of what we're going to be discussing, hence the parental advisory, everybody. If you come across the word cult in a book, like in a scholarly book or a religious book, a theological book, a history book, it's not going to be used that way. Right. So it's actually much more kind of neutral, without the sort of judginess that comes with the popular usage. And it just generally means a worshiping community, right? A cult. So in many cases, cult is essentially a synonym for a religion, but also can be used, particularly in the Christian context, Christian scholarly context, to refer to the veneration of a saint. So they could say, well, the cult of St. Paul was very popular in this region.
The cult of the martyrs.
Yeah, exactly. And all they mean by that is, veneration, religious veneration, right? So it's a very, very different sense of it.
Right. It's also sometimes used to refer to, somewhat anachronistically, as we've said before on the show, refer to the religious aspects. Right, so to see somebody talking about the Roman cult, and what they mean is like religion in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Right, to distinguish that, or people who want to talk about the cult culture distinction or relationship or that kind of thing. They're using cult to refer to elements of a society or culture that are quote unquote religious, which, as we've pointed out, is a very modern thing to try to separate those out, but people do it and they use the word cult to refer to it.
Yeah, or they might refer to cultic practices, which again just means the stuff having to do with what we would call religion, or a cultic center. That would be like a temple or a sacred grove. Again, all that sort of stuff. This is all related to what mystery cult is, but it doesn't exhaust that. So, like, what exactly is a mystery cult when we're talking about the ancient world?
It's when you drive around with your dog and like 4 of your friends in a van solving mysteries.
Man, you didn't warn me of that joke during our briefing earlier.
I save all my best material for live recording.
Those meddling kids.
So mystery cult, the purpose of having the phrase mystery cult, right, is to the mystery cults, for example, that we're going to talk about tonight involve pagan gods, mostly, right? Involve pagan gods that are also worshipped outside of the mystery cult, right? So if you think about one of the major ones is going to involve the Greek goddess Demeter, okay? And Demeter goes way back in certain regions of basically originally Asia Minor mostly, but other parts of the Greek world as well, as a harvest goddess, right, an earth goddess, this kind of thing. Very sort of standard goddess worship kind of tropes that you find way back.
Yeah, you got sacrifices, the community coming together around a temple. Like, this is what the community
harvest
does.
festivals. Yeah.
Normal
all
pagan
the usual
stuff.
things. And then in one particular place, and we'll be talking about this more in the second half in detail, but in one particular place, this particular type of ritual observance surrounding the worship of Demeter springs up. And so that particular form of worship in that particular place, which goes on for centuries, right? But that particular worship, that particular place is referred to as a mystery cult to distinguish it from that sort of broader standard pagan worship. And we'll see the same thing with gods like Dionysius and some other god, right? There's sort of the standard, regular pagan worship, but then in particular places, there come to be these particular types of observance that are categorized together as mystery cults, and then you will refer to the mysteries of a particular god or of a particular place to distinguish that from just the standard worship of that god or goddess.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what are some factors that differentiate those two? Well, the broad standard pagan worship of, say, Demeter, right, is going to involve like a big harvest festival in a city that has a temple to the goddess Demeter. And people from the surrounding villages, people who live in the city, people who have moved to the city, people visiting the city at the time will all gather and offer sacrifices to Demeter and have a big feast and eat together and do your sort of standard pagan communal public worship. And this is part of the life of the city.
Yeah, and it's calendrical, like it happens every year or every few months or something like this. It's part of the normal rhythms of life, and people all experience this together.
Right. So it's public in the very original sense, right? It's of the people, right? Like whereas the mystery cults, those observances are private, in the sense that they are limited to certain people who meet certain requirements, certain prerequisites, have gone through particular processes and things. They're not open to the general public. They're the subject of a few individuals. Now, sometimes they're sort of housed within. So, for example, again, we'll go into more detail in the second half, the mysteries related to Demeter. There was also, at the same time that those private rites were being done, in that area, there would be a big public feast that the general hoi polloi could all, pun intended, could all go participate in, right? But the mysteries were then this other aspect, this other private aspect. And then relatedly, of course, the sort of public worship of the general cult, as opposed to the mystery cult, right, was collective. It was based around the group doing it together, the city celebrating it together, the region celebrating it together, communal meals at the idol's temple, broad-based, and a big part of the purpose of it was forming and strengthening community bonds.
Yeah.
Right. With each other and with the demon they were worshiping.
Right.
Right. So that was the goal. Right. Whereas the mystery cults are oriented toward the individual. Right. Because, as you'd expect, related to them being private, there are select individuals who have this personal experience. The rituals are aimed at the person having that personal experience.
Yeah.
And becoming an initiate is like a personal achievement. It's something you have accomplished, right? Something that you have achieved, you've received, that the vast majority of other people have not.
Yeah, and because it's not part of the sort of the cyclic public life, it's also something that you just go through once, right? So I was trying to think about what the kind of something that might be immediately analogous for some people would be maybe, if someone goes and it's not perfectly analogous, but like they go on some kind of like a spiritual retreat, right? Like someone invites you, to go to the desert to go, do a peyote thing with them. Right. That it's this private
You
thing.
want to go to the desert.
Anyway.
Anyway.
It's this private thing that people go to experience this one time. And it sort of changes you. And, but no one there like maintains, it's not a community thing after, like, it's not like you might have your peyote buddies or whatever, but it's not really like that. It's not, it's not a community living together and doing these things and being bound together. It's something that you went and did for you.
Yeah.
As
a white tourist. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, I mean, you can think of, we do have rites of initiation now into civic life, right? For example, going and getting your driver's license.
Yeah. Sure. Of course.
Driver's ed, right? Like, now that's, I mean, my whole driver's ed thing was a wild experience because
I bet it was.
Our driver's ed instructor was an elderly chain-smoking woman who let us play the radio in the car as long as she could roll the window down and smoke.
I feel like this is the beginning of some kind of late 80s, high school film or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And she'd let me cussing out all the other drivers, like when they cut us off and stuff. It was kind of amazing. But anyway, I won't go further down that rabbit trail.
Yeah. But also,
but yeah, there are,
I was to say, people who
one-time rites of initiation like that.
Yeah. And the other thing is that people who go through these mysteries do not in any way see themselves as now belonging to a different religion than the rest of their community.
Right.
In as much as that is a thing, it's either an element of, or kind of related to, or just a thing that you did. It's not like, oh, I joined this. You're not joining anything actually by going through a mystery, a mystery cult.
Right. Like the initiates didn't get together and do a secret handshake to identify each other and talk about some secret knowledge they'd received. Because the knowledge, when we go into detail, you'll see this. The knowledge they receive is like an experience.
Yeah.
Right. So you could call it knowledge, but it's like an experiential kind of knowledge. It's not like, oh, we revealed some secret truth to you, right. The earth was colonized by aliens, thousands of years ago, and Adam and Eve escaped from an alien ship and brought with them this apple of Eden that you could use to take free will away from humanity or something, right? Just to spin an example off the top of my head. Right? Like, there was no like, oh, here's the secret history of the world that no one knows and only the few of us initiated know it.
Right. No,
it's
it's
kind
not
of
like that.
Propositional truth kind of idea. It was, you'd all shared an experience, but not together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's not that you all went through this shared experience together and now that has bonded you together. It's quite the opposite of that.
Yeah.
You were isolated and had this experience by yourself, right? But by how it works, right? And so people in the mysteries who had been initiated could come back to like assist. And I mean assist in a very pragmatic way, right? Like the functions for the next initiate, right? The next initiates, but they didn't undergo it again.
Yeah, because the idea
They
is
didn't try to have the experience again.
Yeah, you already got it. You have ascended on some level, right? You're exalted already. You wouldn't do it
Right.
again.
And so this is in some ways, and what we're going to talk about now is review, but it's review of something we haven't talked about on the show for a while. But if you go a few years back in the show, you'll find us talking about it in more detail than we're going to talk about it now. But in certain ways, what's going on, because of these differences, what's going on in a mystery cult is kind of an inversion of the way ritual normally works in human society. So we've talked about before that the way ritual primarily works is that through ritual, which is repeated ordered activity, right? And we usually use it in some kind of religious sense, but it doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of other kinds of rituals.
Yeah, and it can run amok, right? So sort of the principle in human nature that causes ritual to work this way can run amok, and then you end up with, for example, a lot of people who suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder compose elaborate rituals, right? Over small things like hand washing and locking doors and, right? All kinds of things like that, right? In order to maintain like their lives in their minds, for example. So that could run amok. But the basic principle in human nature is that this kind of repeated order activity shapes the way we see the world. And what we mean by that, shapes the way you see the world, is every experience we have is filtered through a grid. We do not have any bare objective experiences. As we've said before, there's no view from nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? Everything you see from some particular perspective, right? Things don't look, just a very basic level, things don't look the same from above and from below. They look different, right? And so everything we see, everything we read, definitely not going to go down this rabbit trail for a whole longer, but this is the fatal flaw of the whole idea of sola scriptura, the idea that you could come to the Bible and just read what's objectively in the Bible without it being colored by your past experience, by your
the view from
life
nowhere.
so far, by the things you've learned, by the way you've learned to define words that you read, right? Like, obviously, all of that. So we're we can argue about when you're born, but from not long after you're born, you are not a blank slate anymore. Okay, like that's, even if you want to say you're born that way, John Locke. By the time you remember anything, you're not that way anymore, right?
Yeah.
You have a set of experiences, and you have a language that you're learning to think in, and you have right, and all of those are going to shape this, right? And so we've talked before, like the main categories of things that help shape that grid are language, right? The way you name things and the way names of things are related to each other conceptually, right? That covers how you perceive those things. And then music and art, which both shape the way you see and interpret things. And by see, I mean sense. So I mean see, hear, taste, touch, right? You start to associate particular smells and tastes and sounds with certain things, right? And And then finally, the fourth one is ritual. And ritual is an overarching one because ritual can include language, music, and art, right? So just to use one example of a ritual, the Orthodox Divine Liturgy, right? It takes place in a setting where there is iconography and certain types of architecture, right? And there is obviously music of a certain type. And there is particular liturgical language, not meaning what language liturgy is done in, but there are words that mean something within that context, right? There are technical terms, divine liturgy words, right? Sometimes they're words that are not commonly used outside of that setting by many people. I don't hear people use the word remission very often if they're not talking about sins in a liturgical service.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're just words that have a different meaning in that context, right? Where there's some subtle shift in meaning where, okay, yeah, the way you normally use that word, it's X, but here we're using it to refer to this other thing, right? That might be like spirit, which means something very different at a pep rally or the Divine Liturgy, right?
Right.
That's
quite.
But the other thing about ritual is that ritual can be used deliberately to reshape perceptions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And this is part of how, for example, cults in the contemporary sense of the word work. Right? The cult leader constructs a kind of communal life for the people that is aimed at whatever his goals are, which, as we said, inevitably becomes sex. But, right, that's everything is structured. He structures the communal life of the people and isolates them from outside influences. That's almost always a he, so that they can, right, he can control, right, their very perception of reality, right? Now, music and art and language by themselves do this, but it's often less deliberate in the sense that, ostensibly at least, right, unless you're, trapped in an elevator, we choose what music we're going to listen to, right? We may not be aware of the effects that music is having on us. We choose what kind of images to look at. We may not be aware of how that's affecting us, but it is. But that's still a consequence of our choice, right? But ritual can very deliberately reframe the very way we experience things. And that's, frankly, the goal of, for example, Orthodox services, right? Orthodox services are aimed at changing the way we perceive and interact with the world. This is going to become important later. And so one of the most important parts of joining the Orthodox Church is submitting yourself to Christ's church, to be reformed, right?
Yeah,
to be reshaped,
which is
right,
which is the way when we say things like you can't just read it all in books. This is part of what we mean by that. That
right.
Unless you go through the rituals and experience the ritual life of the church, your point of view, at the very least, your point of view is not the point of view of the church.
Right. The way I read things, the way I see things, the way I hear things, the way I interpret things, the way I assess the meaning of things is wrong.
Yeah.
And I have to therefore submit to that being corrected. And that's not just a question of logical propositions, right? Of, I think A is true, but actually B is true, so someone needs to correct me and I need to believe that B is true. No. I believe that A is true, right? But the way I understand A or B or anything else, right, my way of understanding it is wrong.
Yeah, it's not just the data.
So even if B is absolutely true, if you just tell me B, I won't understand B correctly. right? You ultimately have to enter into a community. It's within the ritual life of a community that all these things make sense, right? And they can't totally be understood from outside. But you may have noticed I've just said community a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
Right? And collective and group and shared life. And that's the way pagan religion works too. It's just conforming you to something other than Christ, right? It's conforming you to the spirits that those religions are worshiping, right? But as we said, a mystery cult, by definition, is not doing that collective thing.
Yeah, it's for you.
Right. It's you being set apart as an individual, in part by having this experience that others have not had. Right? That's part of the whole idea. Right? Is that this is going to make you different than other people. Not this is going to bond you together with other people. Right? And shape how all of you live together and think together and see things together. Right? And so it is about, as we said, inducing a particular experience. And then rather than participating in a way of life that reframes how you experience the world, you have an experience that is supposed to reframe the way you think about your life. So it's almost a direct inversion. And to get to the heart of the matter, pretty much all of the mystery cults are chthonic.
Yeah, meaning there's an underground element, so to speak. There's an underworld element.
Right. That this is stuff involving death. Not a near-death experience the way we talk about it now, but not totally dissimilar to that. Right?
Yeah.
When we talk about near-death experiences currently, we talk about, somebody was, medically dead for 2 minutes and they come out of it. And during that time when, they flatlined and things said they were technically dead, they come back reporting having had some experience. And often that's an experience of a spiritual nature, right? That's not what we're talking about, although it's not, like I said, not totally dissimilar from that. This was more... This is more about inducing a near-death experience in the sense of someone's in a horrible car wreck and emerges alive. Right? Someone in war or in some other context is getting shot at and almost dies but doesn't. Okay. Someone survives a plane crash that most of the other people don't. Right? That kind of near-death experience. And so you can understand how, if you think about people who have had those experiences I just listed, that kind of reframes how they think about their life, right?
Oh, sure. I mean, they say
almost died.
Your life flashes before your eyes. I mean, I've talked to multiple people. I mean, one gets this in pastoral ministry, where if they almost die, maybe they have a disease, maybe they have, whatever. I almost died on the operating table, or this kind of thing. They often rethink the way that they live, and they live in a different way. They see life differently after that.
Right. And so the mystery cults fundamentally are about inducing that kind of experience in a person.
Yeah.
Giving a person that kind of experience. And so the experience itself is the thing, is what they're after and what they're about. So it's not about just objectively having participated in the ritual.
Right. This is definitely I'm doing something for me kind of thing.
Right. Right. Like you think about pledging a fraternity, you go through some series of ordeals, right? And now you're a member, right? But the experience of the ordeals is not really ultimately what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about you becoming a member.
Right.
And you go through those ordeals with a group of people, right? And it bonds you together with those people.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways a certain parallel would be, for instance, people who do hallucinogenic drugs to achieve a higher state of consciousness or something like that.
That's not a parallel. It's kind of on the nose.
Yes, that's true, as we'll discover, of course. But most people aren't. Most people these days are not doing that. There's no conception of a mystery cult. Yeah, but I mean, it's come back now. It's I don't want to quite say it's respectable, but there's some people that are presenting themselves as respectable who will say things like for instance, Alex O'Connor, the guy, what does he call himself? Cosmic Skeptic. I think he did mushrooms or something like that, and said that he understood things better. He understood some things. He achieved something in doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. With him, I interpret that a little bit differently, but
really, I don't know his work well. But I did hear an interview where he said that.
So there are some folks out there, especially now, right? I'm talking about younger people now, right? Because it had been a while before. Well, it had been a while. It had been ever since anybody was really raised without religion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is a new thing.
That's been a rare occurrence in human history, right? People rebel against the religion they were raised in,
sure.
Right? So you can think about somebody like Voltaire, who hated Christianity, who's still raised Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
Right? Like he just hated it, rejected it, right? Or Thomas Jefferson with, Protestantism or whatever, right? They were raised with some religion and just didn't like it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone who was raised without any religion. Right, which we now have increasingly in the world, especially in the United States and Europe, right? And those folks mostly have no religious sensibility. And what I mean by that is they don't think in those categories at all.
Yeah. I think they might think about consciousness and the mind and this kind of thing. And I think for those people, if they decide to do some kind of drugs as part of that, they think of it as tinkering with that.
Yeah. So they don't have a religious sensibility. Like they don't. If you see them trying to talk about religion in the world, they always turn it into politics, or they turn it into something that they do have more of a sense of, right? And it's not that they're like horrible people with no soul, unless they're gingers. It's that they just don't have that sensibility, right? That like just doesn't. So think about something that just doesn't appeal to you, right? Like ballet just does not appeal to me. I have no sense of ballet.
Despite
if you made me go to a ballet and I sat there, I would not be able to tell you whether it was a good one or a bad one.
Despite being an award-winning ballroom dancer, Father Stephen, I can't believe it.
Yes. Strictly ballroom. No, bad. Right? It doesn't mean there's something wrong with ballet dancing. It just means I have no sense of it. Right? Like, I could watch it unless somebody just, trips and falls. Right? Like, I'm not going to be able to know, like, oh, that was an exquisite whatever maneuver. Right? Or figure skating. My sisters watch figure skating. I don't know what a quadruple Lutz looks like even. Right? Like, no clue. Right. So I have no sensibility for it. Right. So like me watching it is a waste of my time because I have no sense of it. Right. These folks are that way with religion. And I think some of those folks, when they do psychedelics, that's the first time they've had anything even approximating in any even rough way a religious experience. And so it sort of opens up this category, right? Like if somehow I did get roped into going to a ballet and for some reason on that particular night, something I saw in it was just the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, right? Like maybe I'm developing a sense for ballet, right? But in this case, it's the inklings of developing some kind of religious sensibility to someone who previously didn't have one. Right. That's part of what I think is going on there. So all that is to say, I think that's a little different than what's going on here, because maybe in most cases, I think these people had, since they were in the broad run of paganism, they had some kind of religious.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's an analog. It's not a. Yeah, it's an analog. Yeah.
But again, this isn't about being able to just point at objectively, right? Objectively, I took driver's ed, I took the written test, now I have my driver's license, right? Or objectively, I went through the process, I joined this fraternity, I'm a frat brother,
right?
Or a sorority sister, right? Where there's this objective thing. I did these steps, now this is the thing, right? And there was an experience involved there, and that experience did certain things like bond me together with my frat brothers or sorority sisters. We got to be even-handed here, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. Or, now I am one of the people who has a driver's license, so I can get on a plane.
That's what they're for, as you know.
Yes. Start racking up those frequent flyer miles. Right. But the experience, right, me going through driver's ed with my friend Dave, right, may have helped strengthen the friendship between me and Dave as a teenager, right? But that was not the purpose. The purpose of me going through driver's ed was to get a driver's license, not to hang out with Dave.
Yeah.
Right? Dave's not here, man. But the purpose of entering the fraternity or sorority, right, and the initiation is not just to have an experience, it's to bond you together with your frat brothers and sisters, right? That's the goal, is to make you part of this group, right? So with the mystery cult, the purpose of being initiated in the mysteries is just to have the experience of being initiated in the mysteries.
Yeah.
Right. It's the difference between having a few drinks at a party to lubricate your socializing versus having a few drinks at home by yourself just to get bombed.
Yeah.
Right. So what other great family-oriented analogies can I draw? But we gave a parental advisory, so your kids shouldn't be listening to this anyway. Especially when we get in the next half.
I was going to say, this half hasn't been bad at all in comparison to where we're
no, you're being lulled into a false sense of security.
That's right.
When we start the second half, you better not bring your kids. I'm just
hide your kids, hide your wife.
So this and the way this experience, this sort of, as we said, near-death experience of almost dying, of coming to the cusp of death and then pulling away, right, was not just a spiritual encounter in the sense that in broader paganism, right, the ritual life of broader paganism, you're having an encounter with the spirit in the woods or in the spring or in the fountain, or you're having, an encounter with the god or the goddess, right, of some sort. But not just the spirits themselves, but you're having an encounter with the whole spiritual world, particularly the underworld. So it's not just, I almost died, like in a biological sense, right? My life has a terminus, I need to rethink things. But also, you're sort of coming right up to the gate of the underworld and then turning back, and you get sort of a glimpse of it, is the idea.
Yeah.
And so it's, I have seen now, right, the fate that awaits me in all flesh, right? Beyond just our sort of modern biological sense of death.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that there's probably a certain level of thrill-seeking that kind of goes into some of this,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen Flatliners, but that's what I imagine the movie is about. Is that what it's about? Have you seen it? I assume you've seen it.
It's kind of, okay, so there's the original, there's a remake, and the remake is terrible.
Okay. I've never seen either.
But the original is kind of a classic, yes. Except, yeah, the original actually would kind of pair a little well with this in that they're kind of thrill seeking and they end up encountering things in the spiritual world.
Yeah,
maybe that they didn't want to.
Little did they know.
But there is the whole Julia Roberts issue.
Well,
I don't like looking. I don't like looking at Julia Roberts.
Oh, I was going to say I was going to leave that as a cliffhanger.
Oh no, yeah.
I mean, our mutual friend Deacon Sarah from Roland believes that Julia Roberts can unhinge her jaw and swallow humans like an anaconda.
See, now this is what the only thing we've ever had in common, because I used to say that Julia Roberts looks like she could eat a whole apple.
Well, there you are.
So see, apparently we share one insight.
There is something. Yes, you can come
involving
together
Julia
on this.
Roberts.
That's right. So
yeah.
Well,
and you know, what about Breakfast at Tiffany's? As I recall, I think we both kind of like it.
That song has a very specific reference in my head because of I was going through some stuff, man, when that came out.
The horrible summer when that was played continuously.
I know,
on the
it's
radio.
everywhere. All right, well, on that cliffhanger, then we're not going to reveal any details about that from my life. We're going to take our first break, and we'll be right back on this It's Getting Weirder episode of the Lord of Spirits podcast.
Hi, this is Genevieve, the Director of Development at Ancient Faith Ministries. I want to wish you all a warm and spiritually nourishing Christmas season. As we journey through the sacred Nativity fast towards the birth of Christ, I pray you are filled with hope, awaiting the light of the world. Throughout history, Christians have understood that the light we receive is meant to be shared with others as a gift. St. Nicholas secretly brought hope to families in need, and St. Lucia demonstrated how we can be light bearers in a world of darkness. Here at Ancient Faith, we are honored to edify, evangelize, educate, and engage countless seekers, believers, and those hungry for spiritual nourishment. Every donation, no matter how modest, becomes a light that we pass forward to our listeners. As you prepare for the Nativity, would you consider giving the gift of light to Ancient Faith? Your gift, whether 25, 50, or 100, joins with the offerings of countless others to ensure that Christ's light continues to be lit and shared. Please visit ancientfaith.com and click support on the top menu. Together we are light bearers. Together we prepare the way of the Lord. Blessed Nativity to you and yours, and thank you so much for your generosity.
Hey, welcome back. It's the second half of this pre-recorded episode of the Lord of Spirits podcast. We're talking about mystery cults in the ancient world. And this is the half where the parental advisory we delivered in the first half is really going to kick in. So
full effect.
Yeah. So again, please, parents.
Must be this tall to ride this ride.
Yeah, parents, please review this before you listen to it with your kids. Because while we're not going to
bring it on your Thanksgiving guests.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to be explicit, but we are going to be straightforward. So,
because here's the thing. You're sitting there right now, especially if you're on the West Coast, right, as you're hearing this premiere, and you're thinking to yourself, man, we're going to sit down for dinner. Crazy uncle's going to bring up politics. This is all going to go south. Listen, play this in the background. Stunned silence. Much better Thanksgiving mood.
That's right, exactly. Wait, what? What?
Yes. Just people awkwardly looking at one another.
I do kind of love it when that happens. Not because it's lurid, but because I think what it does is it makes people realize that a lot of our assumptions about the ancient world are all wrong or significantly wrong.
Yes.
Or
at least significantly Baudelarized.
Yeah, we have this idea of these beautiful white columns and all this kind of stuff.
Which weren't white, they were painted garish colors.
But it turns out that it was...
Exhibit A.
Right, exactly. I mean, it turns out that it was a pretty nightmarish world, in fact, for most people.
Yes.
So...
Yeah. This doesn't play into your nice rhetoric about the world was this beautiful paradise of pagan nature lovers, and then these horrible Christians came in and started oppressing all the women's.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
And getting rid of slavery. Oh no, wait, that doesn't work either.
Right. Yeah. I guess we should just make our semi-annual nod towards Dominion by Tom Holland if you want to get the overarching sweep about what the ancient world was actually like and how Christianity completely changed the whole world.
Yeah.
Whether you're Christian or not. So, all right. Well,
yes.
Let's get into some details about mystery cults. So if they're so mysterious, they're so secret and stuff, how do we know anything about them other than what
they're
people
terribly mysterious?
Yeah.
Like the Sphinx. So we mentioned last time when we were talking about Mithras that part of the reason, right, we don't have any texts for Mithraism because they were either passively not copied and maintained or more antagonistically destroyed. A mixture of both, right? I'm not saying one or those two is what happened. I'm saying both probably happened in different places over time. And we didn't have anybody really rat out what was going on, right? There's no rat, no stoolie, no narc, no tattletale, right? No snitch, right? Who came and told everybody what was going on. Not so with some of the other mystery cults. And so the biggest rat of the ancient world was a fellow named Apuleius.
Yes, who wrote a book with, and we're not kidding about this, a title, The Golden Ass.
Yes, The Golden Ass. I have so many jokes that I can't tell live on the air because I know it's pre-recorded. They'll get edited out. So I'm not even going to bother.
But I think it should be mentioned, though, that actually Apuleius' name for his book is the Metamorphoses. But
Ovid,
yeah,
beat him
right,
with a punch on that one.
right. But I guess the Golden Ass title we get from Saint Augustine. He's the one who refers to it as the Golden Ass, and it's kind of a novel.
Well, yeah, it does. It is the story of a guy who gets turned into a donkey.
Yes, right.
Magically.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the use. It's the biblical use of the word ass.
Correct. Exactly.
As it were. Which still made me snicker.
Yes.
As a kid every time the Ten Commandments were read. But.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, almost every culture has this sense that donkeys are, kind of goofy and low and ridiculous and
stupid and stubborn.
Call someone that, it's an insult. It seems to be almost universal throughout time and space, which of course are both illusions as we've covered in the past. But yes, by Apuleius, the
transhistorical reality of donkeys. Yes. The platonic form, eternal platonic form of the donkey. This work is famous for a couple of things. For those of you who are C.S. Lewis fans, which I don't know, statistically is at least the majority, if not the super majority of you.
Yeah, a certain Venn diagram.
Yes, like I am not counted among you, unfortunately, but I know you're there. The reason you love this is because this is where the story of Cupid and Psyche is, right?
Yep.
Which C.S. Lewis wouldn't have had access to otherwise, and so you wouldn't have your favorite book.
Yep. It is his best book. Until We Have Faces is his best book.
The only books of his I really love are the Space Trilogy.
Oh, really?
Which are the ones that no one else likes.
People like him. Although I liked the first two better than the third. The third, there was a lot about it that I appreciated. I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing here. But I don't know. I didn't like it. What can I say?
Well, the third one, he gets political. And then I feel betrayed.
That's ironic coming from you.
Yes. Irony is so ironic sometimes.
It really is. Okay, but yes, why are we looking at this book? Like, what does it have to do with?
So anyway,
our magical
the story of
mystery
Cupid and
tour?
Psyche is in there as a story within the story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The broader story being this guy who ends up becoming a donkey and then gets changed back, but he, over the course of the story, is initiated first into the mysteries of Isis, and then he goes to Rome and is initiated into the mysteries of Osiris and becomes sort of a priest, right, within the mystery cult. And in the context of narrating that, Apuleius goes into full detail about all the things that happen in these initiation rites. Right? So he doesn't just say it happens, like he describes the whole thing in detail.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And thereby is a stool pigeon. Sort of leaks everything.
Now, how do we know that how would he know he's not making it up? How do we know that?
Well, part of how we know it's not making it, so this is the only description this detailed that we have.
Okay.
Right? For any mystery cult.
So we don't have anything to compare it completely against.
Right. But there are bits and pieces of information and details that we have about various mystery cults, right? Little bits and pieces of different sources here and there. And all of those little bits and pieces from all over the place all check out with this detailed description.
Okay. So they're basically mutually compatible. This is the data we
Right.
have. If there's anything
So
that
it's
we know
broadly accepted.
if there's anything we know about mystery cults, this is where we know it from.
Right. It's broadly accepted that, at least in the broad strokes, this is what's going on. Versions of this, variations on these themes, are what is going on in mystery cults.
Okay.
Right. And so the rest of this half, we're going to be talking about some of those variations in different mystery cults.
Sure.
Right. But the broad strokes, right? Okay. And so a lot of the broad strokes we were talking about in the first half, right, like about the near-death experience part and that kind of thing, we're getting from primarily the Golden Ass as reinforced by other sources.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Now, and another part of this is, of course, that, you know, these are the mysteries of Isis and the mysteries of Osiris. These are not native Egyptian religious forms.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like in religious terms, it's almost like a Greek fan fiction of Egyptian religion, sort of. Right? Would that
sort
be,
of, yeah.
Yeah, like
sort of
Greeks who find Egyptian religion super cool, and so they kind of come up with this stuff to participate.
And kind of appropriate it.
Yeah.
Like Richard Gere and Buddhism.
Wow. That's continuing where we just ended the first half,
yes.
right?
Or like when Madonna got into Kabbalah.
Oh yeah, that was so hilarious.
Yes, right. Like that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but then it becomes established.
Yeah.
You know?
Or who did the Beatles meet with? What did they meet with a yogi at one point? Anyway, that kind of thing.
There's got to be a Scientology joke in here somewhere, but it's just not coming to me. But I feel like that's parallel in some ways.
I think we already covered Scientology with the whole all cults become sex cults thing.
That is, yes.
But moving on, I'm going to get sued now. That's awesome.
By the Scientologists? I mean,
yes.
That's what we do on the internet since the 90s.
Then I'll know I have finally arrived.
All hail Operation Clambake. That's what I have to say about all of that. So yeah.
But yeah, so this isn't a native Egyptian thing. This is a product of, under the Ptolemies, right, Hellenic culture sort of interfacing with and having some fun with native Egyptian religious traditions.
And a reminder, everybody, the Ptolemies are a Greek dynasty ruling Egypt. Like Cleopatra.
Yes. Cleopatra was Greek.
One of those. Yes, she was a Greek.
And if you've seen her silhouette on coins, which you can see, we have the coins, she was definitely Greek.
Oh, yes.
She had a Greek profile.
That's right, which one of my favorite issues of the Asterix and Obelix comics makes much of the shape of the nose of Cleopatra.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, childhood memories.
Yeah. So, yes, not that anyone who works for the BBC listens to this, but stop it with the stunt casting. So, the other interesting source, interesting to listeners of this podcast, regarding the mysteries of Isis and Osiris.
And this was a huge, wonderful surprise to me.
Yes.
I couldn't
is
believe it. I couldn't believe that.
A little story told by Josephus in Antiquities.
I know, which is like my grandmother had Josephus on her bookshelf.
Yes.
My late grandmother. She never told me about this.
So, and in terms of the parental advisory, this is going to be a good test case, because if this one causes you an issue, it's all downhill from here, people.
Yeah.
For the rest of this half.
Yeah. Okay.
Just telling you now.
So what is it Josephus says about
So Josephus
mystery cult?
tells a story about this certain fellow, this certain Roman, meaning living in Rome itself, named Mundus.
Translatable as Mr. World.
Yes. And so he is infatuated with a young lady in Rome.
Okay.
And said object of his affections had no interest in him.
Right.
None.
Unrequited love, as it were.
Yes. And so he concocted a scheme for himself. And got her to decide to participate in the mysteries of Osiris.
I mean, most guys would just still go down and buy a love potion from the local Aphrodite.
Yes, but not Mundus, not our boy Mundus. He gets her. Oh, you need to go and be initiated into the mysteries of Osiris at this temple for the mysteries of Osiris in Rome. So she decides to do this, and in the context of this mystery initiation, Mundus has sexual intercourse with her under the guise of, she believes she is having sexual relations with the god Anubis.
See, this is a good tie-in with our giant episode from 5 years ago.
Yes, so she thinks she's just making Nephilim.
Right.
Whereas he, is using subterfuge, right, as a nerd.
To get with the girl.
To get with his crush.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then apparently the Emperor Tiberius found out about it.
Yes, the morals of Rome have been affronted by this terrible act.
Yes. And Tiberius decides that this is terrible. We cannot have such things going on. The Roman people must show more stoic self-restraint than this on both sides. And so had the temple destroyed, had the temple leveled where it happened, and all of the people involved, Mundus, the woman, the priests and priestesses of the temple who were involved, had all of them crucified.
That'll show them.
Yes. And this is kind of, you may be wondering, why would Josephus, our friend the Pharisee,
yes,
right, whom our Protestant friends treat as infallible on the biblical canon.
I know, more important than the church fathers. I mean,
why would he relate such a tale?
Yeah, I mean, it's because it makes the emperor look great, and that's what this guy is all about.
Well, it makes pagans look bad as compared to Jews, but without blaming the pagan emperor.
Yeah.
Right? So he can say as a Jewish person, look, we Jews, we don't do stuff like that.
Yeah. And, the emperor.
And you, O great wise emperor, you know this. That's why, that's how this kind of thing gets punished. But the pagans get up to that kind of stuff. Yeah. So he continues his Roman bootlicking or sandal licking. In this case,
right. This is not a passage from Josephus that your Baptist preacher is probably going to mention on Sunday morning when he's
no. In fact, probably no passage from Josephus other than his canon list.
Yeah, right.
And his claim that every Jew knows that is the canon of Scripture from their birth.
That's Platonic knowledge right there.
Yes. Other than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He never gets quoted by both Protestant.
Yeah, because there's giants in there too, by the way, everybody.
No, there's all kinds. Yeah, there's stuff. As we just saw, there's all kinds of things. He writes a lot about the history of the Herodian dynasty, so there's stuff.
Yeah. All right, so what else we got? What other kinds of shenanigans are they up to there? in the ancient
What else you got?
Greco-Roman world. Yeah. What else you got?
Oh, but wait, it gets worse,
Yes,
right?
it does.
So the mysteries of Isis and Osiris, although we have this from Apuleius, that's not the sort of biggest and most famous mystery cult. The biggest and most famous mystery cult that goes on for the longest period of time are the Eleusinian mysteries.
Yeah, this is the big one.
Yes. And the Eleusinian mysteries this is what we were referring to right at the beginning of the show in terms of Demeter. So the Eleusinian mysteries revolve around the story in particular of Demeter and Persephone.
Yeah, and just for those of you who haven't read that stuff recently, the basic outline of the story.
How dare you, first of all.
I know. What's wrong with you? You guys need to be current with all these things. I mean, you've had thousands of years to read these texts. So
yes, these are the classics.
That's right. So the basic story of Demeter and Persephone is that Persephone is her daughter. So Demeter is this fertility and harvest goddess, right? And her daughter is Persephone, and Persephone is abducted by Hades, the god of the underworld, who thinks that Persephone is all that. And while Persephone is in the underworld, Hades gets her to eat some man, I can see it in my head, but now it's pomegranate. Excuse me. Yeah, some pomegranate seeds, and 6 of them. It's 6, right? I think. And
yeah.
And so, as a result of her eating stuff in the underworld, which I mean, you want to read this in ritual terms, right? She's in communion with the god. Okay. As a result of her eating stuff in the underworld, then she's bound to him, and she is his wife. But then, Demeter basically threatens to kind of destroy the world with endless winter as a result of this. And the gods kind of say, look, Demeter, you can't do that. This is bad. And so a deal is worked out, sort of a timeshare.
Custody deal.
Yes, a custody deal over Persephone, where Persephone will live in the underworld for a number of months with Hades, and then, with her mom Demeter in the other months. And this kind of, the way that often people talk about this is this explains the seasons. So that's an element of the story. But the part of this that's really interesting in terms of mystery cult stuff is that Persephone takes this journey into the underworld and has experiences there. And that's the thing that they're really kind of interested in for this.
Right. And then emerges, right, in the spring. Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, we have to remember, people read this story now mythologically.
Yeah.
So they do the largely dumb, well, they have science, so they think fall and winter are goddess crying, right?
Yeah. And like, okay, but
that's the dumb version.
Yeah,
right?
No,
that's
this
not what it's about.
The reason why the story has power for people is because they participate in it ritually. And of course, on some level, everyone's participating in this with, the cycle of regular feasts and stuff. But you also
the harvest festivals for Demeter.
This particular participation is about this element of it, this underworld journey element.
It's about sharing the experience of Persephone.
Yeah.
Journeying into the underworld, not just celebrating the harvest with Demeter and giving her credit for it, right? Yeah. Which is the more broad concept, right? Yeah, and so this is much deeper than just they don't have science. This is linking together the cycles of human life, birth and death, with the cycles of nature. Right. There's a lot more going on here. Right. And again, yeah, we're talking about a mystery cult that participates in that, particularly through the vehicle of the person of Persephone. And being sort of united to her and having that experience. Now, the Greeks themselves, and still some historians, think this goes all the way back to like Bronze Age Minoan civilization.
Yeah, so that would be super duper early.
Yes. That's not most people, though.
Yeah.
Right? And you can understand why the Greeks would think everything's older than it is, right?
Sure.
If you don't understand that, then you haven't spent a lot of time in an Orthodox church, because in an Orthodox church, if you do something 3 times in a row, your church now has a 100-year tradition of doing that thing.
Right.
Like that's how it works.
That's
the way it's always been. Like,
this is how
since
it
the
was
founding of the church,
in
it
my
has
village.
always been that way.
In Mykonos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's true, and often it's not, right?
Sure.
So the Greeks thought everything stretched, but we've always done this, right? And sometimes it went way back, and sometimes not so far back. Most people think now it started somewhere in the Mycenaean period. Some version of this, right?
Okay.
Not the full-orbed thing, but some version of it. And something that might actually be evidence of that
Yeah, this is wild too.
is in the book of Judges. Certain fella named Jephthah.
Not a saint.
Not a saint.
Not even a little bit.
Although every time I say this about Jephthah and Samson, people go crazy about Samson. This is part of my proof that this is just me ruining their Sunday school. That's all they're mad about. I never hear anything back about Jephthah.
Yeah, who's literally in the same list and used in the same way.
Like, they can make almost all the same arguments
Yeah.
for Jephthah. In fact, they could make a better case because there are fewer church fathers who just directly say that Jephthah isn't a saint
Yeah.
than there are who say directly that Samson is not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at any rate, now we've just ginned that up again because anytime I say the name Samson, like, there's another round of it online. Man, I'm living rent free in so many places. I've got more houses than Donald Trump.
Yes.
The story of Jephthah in Judges. First of all, people only are familiar even with half of it.
Yes.
There's a whole story about war with Moab that nobody remembers.
Yeah. The part that people remember is, of course, that Jephthah makes this oath that the first person that comes to him when he gets back from winning the battle,
he didn't think a cow or a sheep was going to come trotting out to meet him at
sacrifice
the
to
gate.
God, and it turns out it's his daughter, and so she says, let me take some time to lament my virginity. Basically, I'm not going to have gotten to live a normal married life like everybody else. So he gives her some time, and then it's not explicit in the text, but it's heavily implied that he sacrifices her, but then it also says that there is a feast day that's appointed that's connected with this. There's this commemoration that occurs.
There at the end, this is the other part that gets left off, right? So just to do a couple of quick troubleshooting things. Don't come at me with that. He didn't sacrifice her. She became a virgin at the temple. There was no temple.
Yeah.
Are you telling me she became a pagan shrine prostitute? That's better? Anyway.
Yeah.
Like, what? So, right. And what you find, actually, if you read both the church fathers and rabbinic interpretations of Jephthah, is they all talk about the virtue of his daughter. They don't talk about him.
Yeah, she's the hero in this story.
Right. She is presented as sort of parallel to Isaac in the story of Abraham sacrificing his son, where she is sort of quiet and obedient even to the point of death.
Yeah.
That's who they talk about, Jephthah's daughter as being a type of Christ. Not Jephthah killing his daughter as being a type of Christ somehow. Weirdo. That may be why I don't get as much pushback. But anyway, that's but yeah, that it says at the end that there is this feast in the northern kingdom of Israel that comes from this, that they say comes from Jephthah having done a human sacrifice with his daughter, this horrible, evil act, right? And yes, read the Torah. If you made a hasty or rash oath, you could repent of it.
Yeah.
And offer animal sacrifices instead. But he didn't know that because Jephthah was basically an unreconstructed pagan, if you read Judges. So he commits this horrible act, and there's this festival where people go out looking for his daughter, looking for the missing maiden, the missing daughter. Okay? And they go out with torches doing this. Okay? And this is exactly the thing you find at our reports of the earliest stages of the Eleusinian mysteries. The torchbearers are sort of an office within the enactment of the mysteries throughout its history, and they go out looking for, in that case, Persephone. Okay. So now, controversial part. In the same way, and this is especially obvious if you read it in Hebrew, in the same way that the story of Samson, I'm not saying it's not a true story. The story of Samson is a true story, okay? But the way it's presented, right, the way the story is told is as a parody of early stories of Heracles or Hercules.
Yeah.
Okay. In the same way, in the same book, Judges, right, the story of Jephthah is presented as an alternate origin, an alternate horrible origin for this Hellenic pagan festival that eventually becomes the Eleusinian Mysteries. Why would anybody in Israel, especially in the Northern Kingdom, be concerned with either of those things? Because remember, Samson's from the tribe of Dan.
Yeah, which is the basically pagan tribe.
Yes.
The origin of the Antichrist. I mean, read the book of Revelation.
Right.
It's the tribe that doesn't get to go into the kingdom.
But it's also the farthest north.
Yeah, that's
right. It's the northernmost of the northern tribes.
Right.
Right. So why? Well, because the Danites, the Philistines, are descended from the Sea Peoples. They're Mycenaeans. So the pagan religion being practiced by the Philistines and the Danites, and Judges is very clear that the Danites are practicing pagan religion.
Yeah.
Like, it is abundantly clear. It talks about them getting the ephod and hiring the priest to come and, like, sacrifice to it, hiring a Levite, right? And all that. That's all on the page in Judges, right? Their form of paganism is this early form of Hellenic paganism. Early Hellenic paganism derived from what? From Syrian paganism. So there are cross currents and assimilation in Phoenicia, right, as you get up into the Syrian and Hittite regions, right, where this stuff is all mixed. Okay. The reason I say Samson being a parody, by the way, is obvious, especially original Hebrew, is that the original Hebrew is full of puns. Like deliberate puns and jokes in the Samson story. Right, that if you know Hebrew, it's telegraphing to you what this story is doing, right? But yeah, if you're mad about that, about me saying that, send your angry emails to Father Andrew at ancientfaith.com. But so back to the Eleusinian Mysteries proper.
Yeah.
They're called the Eleusinian Mysteries not because, you may have noticed, neither Demeter nor Persephone are named Eleusis.
Yeah, it's the name of a place.
Yes, Eleusis is the city.
Yeah.
where these mysteries took place. Okay. And there were sort of two steps. Right? So if we continue my not great driver's license analogy, you get your learner's permit in midwinter, the end of January, beginning of February. You would go there if you wanted to be among the initiates that year, right, at the festival proper. You'd go there at the end of January, beginning of February, in midwinter, and offer pig sacrifices. They're actually piglet sacrifices. They're baby pigs. You offer baby pigs to Demeter.
And this is, by the way, in case anyone is wondering where this is in the Athens area. It's actually a suburb now of Athens. So
yeah,
probably
Athens was smaller then, so it was a city outside of Athens.
Yeah.
Athenian urban sprawl. So you go there, you make these midwinter baby pig sacrifices to Demeter, right? You're making these offerings to her during her period of mourning, right? Because that's what the winter is supposed to be. And then you come back at harvest time, the next autumn. And that's when the mysteries proper, the initiations proper, were held. And so, as we mentioned, the end of the first half, this is about producing this ritual experience of death and rebirth. So one of the reasons why most of these were performed underground in caverns and tunnels and things is not just the connection with Hades and the underworld, that's part of it, but also because that was the place where you could get absolute darkness. So I don't know if you ever go and take any of these cave tours, any of these famous cave systems in like Kentucky or Carlsbad Caverns.
I did one on Guam.
Okay. Normally, you get down into the cave system and there'll be a moment where they warn you, and then for like a few seconds they turn the lights off.
Yes. And when I took, I'm not kidding about this. When I took this tour on Guam and they turned everything off, someone said, and this is what it's like in a sinner's heart. Evangelical underground boat tours on Guam.
Yes. And then you all shoved Youth Pastor Bob off of the boat.
I still it's a core childhood memory.
But
Guamanian mysteries that I experienced.
This is a kind of darkness you don't get outdoors at night.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly, truly dark. No matter which way you look, you don't see anything. That's the idea.
Yes, like that. You cannot see your hand in front of your face, literally, right? Yes. And so that's a lot of what they're going through. So these rites were performed in that kind of absolute darkness, right? And that's why you have torchbearers, right, as this office. You have to lead people to the place and then put the torches out, right? Like you have to, and then relight them to get them out, right?
Yeah.
So, that darkness is again related to the underworld and death. Interestingly, so Plato, when he talks about the Eleusinian mysteries, he says, this initiation is an experience that brings about enlightenment and opens the nous, right, to the perception of the eternal and the higher things, right? And so most modern scholars will be like, see, Plato reinterpreted the mysteries, right? He gives them this new higher philosophical interpretation.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 right? And this is one of these fundamental errors in how we read today, especially in academia, in that people aren't read as wholes anymore. WHOLES.
Yeah.
That's right. Like, in the past, when you read Plato, you read like all of Plato, and you read all of Plato in a particular order. Right? Now no one does that, right? You get these bits and pieces on particular topics that relate to whatever your particular discipline is that you're studying. So if you're doing philosophy, if you're in a political science program, you got these scraps of the Republic and stuff, and and on laws, right? But you don't read the whole thing, right? And so let me suggest that is not a different interpretation at all of what's going on in the mysteries, because if you read some more Plato, you find out what Plato thinks happens when you die.
Yeah.
And what Plato thinks happens when you die is that your soul ascends to the realm of forms, the realm of ideas, right? To the realm of the eternal, and you behold these things, and then you get reincarnated. Right? Your memories are washed away and you're reincarnated, but there are these latent memories of those eternal realities in your head, so that learning is really a kind of remembering for Plato.
Yeah, right.
And he demonstrates this at one point this is his demonstration. He says, I can get some slave boy, and I can teach him geometry by drawing with a stick in the sand. Clearly, a kid, especially a slave kid, can't understand geometry. But see, because he can understand it, he's really remembering it from when his soul, before he was reborn, beheld the perfect sphere. And stared at the orb briefly. But so, yes. So Plato agrees. Plato is saying, yes, this is experience of death and rebirth. Which is what everyone else said it was too. He just looks at death and rebirth a little differently than a lot of people. But so, in absolute darkness, the people were conducted to the edge of various, and I don't know if it's precipices or precipices.
You got it right the first time. Precipices. Precipices.
Yeah. Led up to the edges of like cliffs and drops and pits and this kind of thing, right? Again, to give you this experience of unsteadiness. You're in absolute darkness, unsteadiness about to fall. And it should be noted, you are not sober.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that some people did fall over, right? There must have been accidents that happened.
There must have been, yes.
A lot.
There probably were people who did not survive their initiation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that would just enhance the, yeah.
Yeah. It was dangerous. That's right, ice, man. These mysteries are dangerous.
Before they led you down into the darkness, you were given a drink called kakean, which technically just means a kind of like mulled or spiced wine.
Uh-huh.
But this was drugs.
Yes.
This was spice like dune spice.
Yeah.
This was...
Here, drink this. When you get that in the mysteries, it's not just you're going to need to be hydrated before your big experience.
So, person is put into this altered state of consciousness, right? Already by that. Then led in total abject darkness to points where they feel like they're about to fall, they're about to die. They're told they're being led into the underworld, right? Okay. And now, the denouement of the mystery initiation. I think this is Father Andrew's favorite part.
Don't say that.
I didn't say why it's your favorite part.
No, it's not my favorite part. It's not my favorite part.
I'm not implying that you were initiated and this was your favorite part. That's not what I'm saying.
Not even a little bit.
But so we're told by Athenagoras of Athens, who is a late second, early third century Christian apologist who writes against various heresies and pagan religions. The way this is generally translated into English, and we had this issue with Mithras too last time. The way it's translated in English is, at the end of this ritual, after having all of these experiences in the darkness, in an altered state of consciousness, on the precipice of the abyss, they would display an ear of corn.
It's very exciting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And this sounds like a fantastically anticlimactic, look, corn.
Yeah, but I mean, it should be noted,
got
of
the
course,
juice.
like this is not corn like Americans think of corn. This is corn like the British think of corn, which just means grain.
Yeah, so it's a sheaf of wheat or something.
Yeah.
Or barley or something, right? Yeah. But it's also not displayed because they're in darkness, right?
Yeah, it's not displayed. There's a sort of a grab bag, as it were.
Yes. So what they did, they'd have a basket.
A basket.
And the basket contained said ear of corn / sheaf of wheat.
I mean, do you like if you pick that out of the basket, considering, as we're about to mention, the other options, do you win a prize or?
Oh no, you were supposed to feel the many things in the basket.
Oh, to get to.
You were not selecting one.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
No. So at the end of it, you're in this state, you feel like you're about to fall into the abyss. They put your hand into this basket, which contains this grain sheaf, right?
And also...
And an assortment of phalluses of various shapes and sizes.
Not my favorite part, it should be said.
And so this is to make a connection, right? The symbolic connection here is between sex and reproduction and death,
fertility.
and the harvest and fertility.
Yeah, all of this stuff
right?
together. Which, for an ancient pagan, like, so for us, we hear that, and it's like, okay, that is deeply weird, disturbing, gross. Thank you for the parental advisory.
Yes.
But for an ancient pagan, this...
I'm never trick-or-treating at that house again.
Right. But for an ancient pagan, this all makes sense. Like, these things are all absolutely linked. They don't think about these images the way that we do. We think about them the way we do for two big reasons. Number one, biggest version, Christianity changed the world.
Right.
Number two, also, our sort of inherited Victorian feelings about these things. Yes. Remember, everybody, that ancient Rome is a place you'd walk through the streets, and there is very explicit pornography drawn on many, many, many of the walls. Like, it is everywhere.
All the time.
All the time. It is absolutely visible everywhere. It is soaked in this stuff. And this is one of the reasons why, by the way, we say that the ancient world is deeply, deeply misogynistic. Like I'm not saying that people aren't sinners in this particular way now, but by comparison, it's very, very tame. Obviously, it's still a sin to treat women in this bad way. Obviously, it's still a sin. But the ancient world, it was horrible. And like this thing we've just mentioned shows, it's a symbol of the way that all of this works. It's just there it is. There it is.
Yes. So, moving on from that, and again with the parental advisory, it's going to get worse before it gets better. I know, hard to imagine, but it is.
Yeah.
So, we talked a little bit about some of the functionaries involved in this, in the sense of the torchbearers, right? But most of the functionaries, so there was a person who's kind of the high priest, the hierophant, right, and the high priestess. Those were inherited offices within a particular Athenian family, who held those priesthoods. And the younger people, those families would make up the rest of the torchbearers and functionaries, right, in the sort of retinue beyond anybody who was already initiated who came back to help, right? But also there was a group that was sort of permanently attached to the shrine in Eleusis, who are called the Panais.
Yeah, which, by the way, is the plural of Panagia.
Yes. And they were women who were completely separated from men.
Yeah, so
like, similar to the Vestal Virgins in Rome.
Yeah, I mean, the word itself, it means the all holy ones, but it can also, but literally what it means is the completely separated ones, because that's what holy means: separated, distinct, set apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so but it's interesting to note, to take from this, right? We are not in any way relating the Theotokos to
the
pagan priestesses.
No.
But just to say that word, right, is also a reference to her ever virginity.
Yeah, because she's completely set apart.
That title, Panagia, is a part of that, completely set apart, not just at one point in her life or up to one point in her life, but for her entire life. Yeah. So, we move on.
All right.
Downward.
It gets, yes.
To the Dionysian mysteries.
I mean, this is going to be like the worst frat party ever.
Yes. Depending on how you grade best and worst frat party.
I was never a member of a fraternity, so there you are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
so,
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, we had an entire fraternity expelled from my college, and the fraternity shut down after a party, sort of like this. But not a joke.
No, I was the guy.
Absolutely true.
I was the guy that when certain fraternities, including like honor fraternities, would come and do events at the theater where I worked, I was the guy who would walk up to them and say, I think you're mistranslating your Greek motto here. And they're always like, what? Yeah. And I would tell them, and they're like, they just had no, I mean, God bless them. No, they're theoretically it's Greek life, but they do not read any Greek at all.
Yes.
That was my interaction with fraternities.
The wildest thing about that whole fraternity getting kicked out of my college all at once after throwing a rager was that there was one guy who took that semester off from the fraternity. So he came back the next semester and he was like the last man standing. Like he was the
last of his kind.
Yes, he was the only one left just because he was not in the state. Like at the time that it all went down.
Funny.
So
and through him it was reborn. No.
Yes. Do I try to rebuild? What do I do?
Right. So, all right. The Dionysian mysteries.
Yes. Okay. So there was this old theory. And this is part of the, again, kind of dumb Justice League view of the Greek gods. That they're the 12 Olympians, right? And at a certain point, Dionysus shows up and replaces one of them. Right? Like, Green Arrow just got too busy in his own comic, and so he had to bring in Elongated Man, right? Like, to take his spot on the Justice League. Right? That's not how Greek religion ever worked at all. Yeah. Right? And so we now know, actually, quite to the contrary, that Dionysus, in terms of the broad pagan worship of Dionysus as a god, goes way back in Greek history because we've found his name in a Linear B inscription.
Yeah, and Linear B is like Proto-Greek, the Greek.
Yeah, Linear B is... So the spoken language was very clearly an early form of the same spoken language, but Linear B was written in a phonetic alphabet. It's not cuneiform because it has a different symbolic system than cuneiform, but it's like cuneiform in that each symbol represents a syllable.
Like in Japanese.
Right. So to give you an example, right, the word for fruit is karpos.
Yeah.
In Greek. In Linear B, it's two symbols, ka and pa.
Gotcha.
Right. So you can trace roots and names in this guy. You can trace things back into Linear B that way. Right. And when you do Greek etymologies, we have a limited amount. We have sort of a library of tablets with Linear B inscriptions from Knossos mainly. And that's pretty much all we have. So there's plenty of Greek words that aren't on any of those tablets.
Yeah.
Right, as far as we know. So it's limitedly useful in etymology. But
useful.
Having studied a little Linear B is how I disproved the whole, the word for mercy in Greek has anything to do with the word for oil.
That's right. It doesn't. It's a good pun.
So
everybody.
if you have shared that meme,
shame on you.
Go delete it right now and slap yourself.
Shame. I mean, it makes a good pun, but the one word is not derived from the other.
And talking about how mercy is like oil might be but there's literally no etymological relationship.
No.
So both of those words, the word for olive oil, I mean, go figure, they're Greeks, right? The word for olive oil and the word for mercy both occur on Linear B tablets that we have.
Yeah.
Each of them is made up of two symbols.
It's not the same.
They have 0 symbols in common.
Yeah.
They are not related words in any fashion.
Yeah.
Okay. So stop that.
And now back to your regularly scheduled mystery cults.
Yes. But so Dionysus's name is on Later Details as listed as the name of a god, right? And so the broad pagan worship in places where they had vineyards to make wine, right, to press wine, which is a lot of places in the Greek world, they were worshiping Dionysus, Bacchus, right, in your Latin-speaking regions, right, that were growing vineyards for wine. Right, this was the pagan god associated with that, and so you have festivals for the grape harvest and the making of new wine and all this kind of thing related to the worship of Dionysus in a standard sense. That's sort of the standard Dionysus cult. So when we're talking about the Dionysian mysteries, though, you take the booze and the sex and the death, and you turn it up to 11, essentially.
Yep.
In the case of the Dionysian mysteries, so with the Eleusinian mysteries, we know they were putting drugs, they were putting dope in the wine, but scholars argue over exactly what. Yeah. What exactly were they putting in there, right? Whereas with Dionysus, we know. Because particularly in sites associated with the Dionysian mysteries, Dionysus is depicted wearing wreaths of poppies.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, opium.
The real opiate of the masses.
Yes. Essentially, the purpose of the Dionysian mysteries were to induce an altered state of consciousness. Okay. And this was true for everybody. So there's the broader festival, like the Bacchanalia, right, that's going on, where this is going on low grade for everybody because everybody's getting drunk. Probably a lot of the people are using drugs. But the opium in particular. But the initiates are doing this on sort of this hardcore level. So we've got the alcohol, we've got the opium, we have flagella, meaning whips and scourges that the people would whip and beat themselves.
Wow. So this is like if
right?
you're like if you're at Burning Man, like this is you go to the freak tent. You know, like there's something going on over in that tent, you know, that's way beyond what everybody else is doing.
So this isn't like, you know, slapping yourself with your belt. These are like scourges and stuff. So they're tearing up their backs. They're drawing blood. Yeah. Right. This is pain to release endorphins.
Yeah.
Right?
This is really, really tough.
We have these things like bull roarers that they used to make this sort of droning noise, this ongoing droning noise in the background, right? While these people are working themselves up into this frenzy, this drug and alcohol-induced endorphin frenzy, at which point the individuals would engage in group sex.
Yep.
So giant orgies happening, but that wasn't the climax. The climax of the initiation was they would seize upon mostly rabbits and engage in omophagy. That's the secret word for today, kids. Which means eating a live animal.
Yeah. So like, well, the thing about rabbits, right, is they're big enough to kind of tear into, but they're small enough you can really easily get hold of them. Like you wouldn't want to do this with like a bull or a goat or something like that. They'd be very, very inconvenient.
But this is literally tear into. It's a live animal. They're tearing it apart with their hands and their teeth.
I'm sure it seems much more reasonable after you've gone through all that other stuff.
Well, yes. Once you're in that kind of bizarre frenzy, right, it culminates in this. Okay. And so there is, and you'll see this in both the iconographic depictions and the idols of Dionysus and Bacchus, is that there's, right, the god, and then there are the Bacchae, right, these other spirits, these sort of little mini-me's, right, of Dionysus and Bacchus, right? And so the idea was sort of the general participants in the festival were deliberately trying to, through the altered state of consciousness, be possessed by these spirits. Right? This wasn't seen as just a frenzy, as in like, oh, I'm all wound up. This was seen as you're being possessed by this spiritual being and driven to this kind of what they considered divine frenzy. The initiates, it was sort of Bacchus or Dionysius himself as sort of the presider at the feast. And connected to the feast where the initiation took place, you had the temporary overturning of the social order.
Yeah, which
right. So you have slaves being crowned, and right, and,
this is a thing, and it's interesting that this kind of even survives. This idea, this particular piece of it, not all of it, survives into like medieval Europe, where you get the practice known as Twelfth Night, which of course is
some carnival practices.
Yeah, carnival practices. Again, of course, there's the very famous Shakespeare play Twelfth Night, and part of what's Twelfth Night is the night before Epiphany, so it's January 5th, and often you would have, as you said, the upending of the social order. So the servants would be made, the lords of the castle, and then the lords would act like slaves, and and there would often be this figure called the Lord of Misrule, who's kind of put in charge for the night, But yeah, it's this kind of upside down world sort of thing that they're doing.
Yes. Of course, this would also. You've got the whole group sex element. You've got people swapping genders. People,
Well, the gender swapping is sort of done in 12th. Yeah, not exactly. It's just disguise. It's just see. This is what happens when Christianity
a lot of that is just that.
As I say, that's what happens when Christianity gets a hold of some of this stuff. It wipes out all of the super problematic stuff and just kind of keeps a very I don't know. As we've said on the Great Tales, like fairy tales are kind of what's left over when Christians really work over mythology. What you get is fairy tales, right? And so this is, like Twelfth Night is kind of the fairy tale version of this horrifying thing that we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Of Devil's Night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also part of that you have to remember is that to the English psyche, there is nothing funnier than a man performatively dressed as a woman.
Right. I mean,
witness Benny Hill and Monty Python.
Right.
That's all
I mean, this exactly. It meant something very different in like the medieval and Renaissance period than how it would be received.
So in this case, right, we talked about how in the Eleusinian mysteries, right, there's this experience you're sort of sharing in the experience of Persephone in the underworld and all this, right? Anyway, I was saying, so when you do all that to yourself and go into this crazed frenzy and you're,
what's the story that you're participating
just had sex with 3 people and now you're tearing into a live rabbit after beating yourself bloody and doing drugs and booze. What experience is that participating in?
Of this?
Well,
I was gonna say of these nature-loving, kind pagans that we've heard so much about since the 1970s.
Yes. You are participating in Dionysius' own experience of having been torn into pieces, boiled in milk, and eaten.
There we go.
So there you go. Yeah. Possible similar ritual behind do not eat a kid boiled in its mother's milk.
Yeah, and of course, the thing that's similar here to other stuff that we've looked at is like there's this element of dying, going to the underworld, sort of coming back, all of this. Because again, this is one of these common things is there's this chthonic element to all of this.
Right. Yeah. It's just the Dionysian version is particularly violent.
Yeah. Now,
on top of everything else.
Now let's talk about what I think is the worst of the examples of this.
Oh, is this your favorite part?
No, this is my... I do not cast favor upon this part, Father Stephen. Aspersions, only aspersions.
Nothing but disfavor.
Nothing but disfavor. Fully merited disfavor.
So, we've talked about kind of the big ones,
Yeah.
right? In terms of mystery cults, right? The big famous ones, right? But there are also lots of little local variations and smaller mystery cults. And some of them even get deliberately created at certain periods in time. Like some of them pretend that they're completely ancient, right? But others don't, right? And so we're going to talk about one of the more interesting ones. We got to warn the Brits here. You're going to have far less appreciation for a certain wall after hearing about this.
Yeah, this might be a little triggering.
Whereas a lot of Jewish people who hear this will be like, we were right all along, right?
Indeed.
About this guy. And we're going to talk about the Emperor Hadrian.
Yes.
Roman Emperor Hadrian.
The wall guy, if you're...
Yes,
you're
the guy who built the wall.
Which I've been to just recently. I went to Hadrian's Wall. I did not go underground.
The guy who was responsible for a lot of the rebuilding of what had been Jerusalem as Aelia Capitolina, featuring a big statue of himself on a pillar.
As one does. One is Roman emperor.
Yes. So he's the one who put down the Bar Kokhba rebellion in Palestine at the time, the Roman province of Palestine. But we're particularly talking about him here in this mystery cult context, in terms of his favorite, speaking of favor, for a period of his life, Antinous. So the Emperor Hadrian was a pederast.
I mean, as a lot of elite Romans at the time were.
Yes.
Frankly.
And Greeks.
Yeah.
Yes. But so he, and favorite is the word that Roman writers used to refer to the teenage boy who was Hadrian's sexual partner at any given point in time. That was his favorite.
Yeah.
I told you it was going to go downhill even more than it already had.
Yep.
So you were warned.
Yep.
Parental advisories very much still in effect. So Antinous was a guy from Bithynia. When he was about 13, he was sent to Rome to study, and that's where the emperor took a shine to him, I guess, and made him his new favorite around the time he was 14 or 15. Then, when he was 19, shortly before his 20th birthday, Antinous died. And Hadrian, being the Roman emperor, as one does, decided that his dead lover, and lover is being polite about it, his dead victim, had become a god.
Yeah, it doesn't usually go that way.
Yeah.
Even in this messed up situation that happened over and
So
over
this
again.
this is a mystery cult founded on pederasty.
Yeah.
And so Hadrian starts building temples to have him worshipped as a god. In some of the Greek places where we found worship of it, he was considered a hero, not a god per se.
Yeah, so a sort of a semi-divine figure. Like
Greeks trying to split the difference.
Heracles.
Right.
Yeah.
But so Hadrian, and we know this was all over the place because we have 20 some odd temples to Antinous.
Yeah.
In wildly different parts of the Roman Empire that Hadrian built. So this is a thing that he was serious about and that kind of took off. And part of this was he also established a mystery cult. Hadrian himself had taken Antinous with him to go and be initiated in the Eleusinian mysteries that we talked about earlier. And he basically modeled the Antonian mysteries after that. It was sort of a ripoff, right? Part of this was he built a cultic center for the worship of his dead victim, had named it Antinopolis.
The city of
In a bit of creativity.
Yes. Right.
Which was, there wasn't really a border at this time in history, but the transitional region between Upper and Lower Egypt along the Nile. He built this city. Yeah. Not on rock and roll. He just built this city. And there he built the central temple in the city, was the temple to Antinous Osiris.
Which means that he's kind of assimilating them to each other.
Yes.
And of course, Osiris, if you know anything about Egyptian mythology, you might know that Osiris, part of his story is that he dies, gets dismembered, and then comes back kind of.
Yeah. There's a whole issue with his phallus.
Right.
Just to tie all the themes together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yes, he's saying by this that Antinous, his dead victim, was an embodiment of the Egyptian god Osiris.
Yeah. Sort of a hypostasis
on Earth,
basically.
Yes. Now, even though that's what he did in Egypt, most of what we have, he was actually trying to assimilate and say that his dead victim was an embodiment of Hermes. That's mostly in the West. In the East, more commonly, he gets assimilated with Dionysus. And what we mean by assimilate here, when we say this, what we really mean is sometimes this is done verbally, like the temple of Antinous Osiris. But a lot of what we're talking about is in iconography, is in religious iconography. So it's Antinous being portrayed as Hermes or as Dionysus or as Osiris in terms of how he's dressed, how he's portrayed, the other symbolism in the imagery, right? And you can see how all these other mystery cults, right, are touching on this. And we have, when I say iconography, I mean we have bas-reliefs, we have a bunch of statuary.
Oh, yeah. And by the way,
there's a bunch of surviving statues of Antinous.
And you can look, by the way, I mean, there is a lengthy Wikipedia article about this young man. And you can see the statues in the article. And there's even, a medallion and all. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff connected with this. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. And so one of these, there's a bust of Antinous Hermes that's in a museum now in Russia because it came from the private collection of one Catherine the Great.
Yeah. Yep.
So see, this even ties into Holy Russia.
There you go.
We're talking about Catherine the Great. Holy is in quotation marks.
She wasn't that great. It's kind of the rule of Russian imperial history, that the rulers that are styled the great were not so great, and the ones that are the terrible were actually not that terrible.
Yes. So Antinopolis was famous for one other thing, and that is that not long after that city was founded, and probably relatedly to why it was founded in the central temple and everything, it became a hub of Egyptian magic, of sort of assimilated Egyptian and Hellenistic magic. And when I say magic, obviously I'm talking about, we've talked about it before, magic in the ancient pagan context.
We did a whole episode on this called Swords and Sorcery, mostly sorcery. So,
yeah. So on what, how magic was worked in the ancient world. But this was considered to be a particularly dark and rotten type of magic, even by pagans.
Yeah, like black magic. Black magic.
Yes. Yes. This was like the bad stuff. This is don't mess with the voodoo. This was right. All the the worst forms of Hermeticism, which by the way gets its name from Hermes.
Hermes, yeah.
As I just said, what's interesting is we have, as you might expect, given when this happens in the 2nd century, and we have a lot of Christian apologists and anti-heretical writers writing in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, or a fair number at least. There are a lot of Christian denunciations of this.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
Yeah. As one might imagine, as one might imagine, like this stuff is going on. This is terrible. Don't go there. This is awful. This is the worst.
And so there's three main counts on which this gets denounced, and this is probably intuitive. You could probably guess these. One is obviously the anti-pagan level of like Hermes and everything.
Yeah.
One is the anti-pederasty level. And then one is the anti-evil magic level.
Yeah. And remember, this is not like satanic panic, Christians going around looking for stuff to get really unhappy about. This is the norm throughout culture.
Yes.
Right? These are Christians responding pastorally to what's actually going on in the culture.
Yes. Right. This is like the book of Acts, right? They bring the gospel to the town. Everybody's bringing out their magic books and burning them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. This is right. So there it is. Now, that you would probably expect. What you might not expect is that we also have tons of pagan denunciations of this.
I mean, I'm always interested kind of in pagan denunciations of other paganism. Like when pagans are like, no, this just goes too far.
Yes, this is just way too far. So, and a lot of it was like, the Romans had a real issue. We're really sensitive to emperors going insane.
It's kind of a problem.
Yes, it's a thing that happened, right? Not infrequently.
Right, with some regularity.
Yes, and it had very bad consequences even for your run-of-the-mill pagan Roman, right? So this was the mad emperor was a bad thing all around. And so I think a lot of the pagan denunciations this is Exhibit A, considered by them, your dead Erastes being proclaimed a god, and you're building temples over the empire to him. This was considered sort of Exhibit A of Hadrian done lost his mind, right? But so they talk about the whole black magic element, which is interesting, right? And they're opposed to black magic, of course, because they believe it works.
Right. I mean, they're not they're not anti-magic. Exactly. Yes. It's like, no, this is just too dark and too weird and too whatever.
Yes. This is like your local witch and or local psychic or local palm reader telling you not to mess with Ouija boards.
Right.
Like, the Christians and the pagans are telling you the same thing, probably good advice. But to give you an idea of how widespread this was, even our old friend Celsus or Celsus.
Yeah.
Right? The guy who, the critic of Christianity, the pagan who attacked Christianity, wrote this, was considered the greatest attack on Christianity that Origen responded to.
2nd century.
Even he went after them.
Yeah.
Right? His fellow pagans.
What's wild is the basis on which he did that.
Yes. So what's amazing is Celsus hates this form of paganism, hates Christianity. So how does he denounce this form of paganism? Taking a dead man and making him out to be a god is Christian garbage. This is Christian mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
So the pagans he doesn't like as a pagan are the pagans who look a little too much like Christianity to him.
I'm just shaking my head. I can't put that on the air, but I'm shaking my head.
It's
weird. It's just
kind of amazing.
And what's crazy,
like Christianity derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. He's so flummoxed by Christianity that he starts calling this stuff Christianish. Whatever. And what's amazing, one of the things that's amazing, this is all amazing and not in a good way, to me, is that there are actually people here in 2025. I can't believe
this isn't amazing to me. This is expected to be.
Yeah, it is. It is. I guess I just live in a perpetually amazed state. Is that there are people here in 2025 who are trying in some way to bring back the Antonian or whatever you call it, Antiochian mysteries, because they think that this in some way represents, like consensual homosexuality or something like this.
Yes. This is somehow spiritualized or divine or sacred homosexuality.
It's just whatever you think of homosexuality. It's just not. This is an emperor taking a teenage boy, okay? And that's the basis
Yes.
of this religious practice. Like,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, now that we
I
have-
would think, were you a homosexual person, you would want to denounce this and
Right.
dissociate yourself from
right,
this.
right.
But for some, not.
I guess not.
Right?
For some.
Lots of people want to LARP. Apparently, if you're gay and you want to do the neo-pagan LARP thing,
I mean,
for some of them, this is it.
there it is. So now that we've descended down into these chthonic depths, we're going to
Horror and grotesqueries.
yes. Father Stephen and Father Andrew's cabaret of horrors. We're going to take our
How Thanksgiving appropriate.
second and final break. I know. We're going to take our second and final break for this episode, and we'll be right back with, God willing, something a little bit better.
How did the Sun Cross, once carried by the pagans of the Baltic North, become the cross of Jesus?
How did the last pagan nation of medieval Europe first encounter Christ in the Orthodox Church?
Herodotus said these people were known as werewolves.
Come with us on a pilgrimage through the sometimes strange, sometimes surprising history of Lithuania. The green northern land poised between east and west.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's the third half of this truly astonishing episode of the Lord of Spirits podcast.
Tales to astonish.
Yeah. Why are we talking about all this? Well, number one, of course, this is the kind of thing we talk about on this wacky podcast of ours. See, you guys thought we didn't have anything interesting left in us after 5+ years. Here we are throwing this at you. But more importantly than that, there are people who argue that Christianity is derived from this, which of course is what we were talking about to some extent last time. You know, people say that Christianity is derived from Mithraism, and we showed how that is just utter bunk. But there are people who say that Christianity is a kind of mystery cult, and that it has its basis in all of this stuff. And so, like, okay, well, let's look at what the actual content of all of those things is. So now, having heard all that, is it the case? Like, is there any basis for this? Like, why do people say that Christianity is in some way derived from these mystery cults from the ancient world?
Yeah. What's the best we could do with that argument?
Yeah, what is what's the steel man of that argument, so to speak,
Yes.
right?
That's, if there could be one.
Yeah.
He's more like a tin man in this case, but
Aluminum man.
it's at least not straw. Yeah. Well, yeah. And this is, so by the way, right, just to, let you a little bit into the madness in my method. Right. This is sort of the negative argument to the positive argument of religion of the apostles.
Yeah.
Right. When I make arguments that Christianity is, right, the fulfillment of Judaism, that Christianity comes out of Second Temple Jewish traditions, it's as opposed to the folks out there who want to argue that it comes from pagan traditions. So part of how I make that overall argument, part of how we make that argument on this show, right, is to show how Christianity flows from Jewish traditions. The other half is, on the negative side, showing the radical disconnect and discontinuity between Christianity and pagan religions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what we're seeing tonight.
Right.
That's the purpose of all this grossness.
Yep.
It's not just the giddy delight I get in being transgressive. It is that, but it's not only that. Right? it's also, right, to show this stark contrast between what's going on in a mystery cult and what's going on in Christianity, right? But, so what's the best we can say if you want to try and find connections? And you're going to find, just like with Mithraism, we have to get kind of vague, right?
Yeah. So probably an obvious place to start is that, like, for instance, we know that in early Christian practice that the Eucharist was private. You know, people would be sent out. Like, we still have this liturgically, right? We dismiss catechumens. At least the prayers are said even if catechumens are not actually sent from the room.
Yeah.
So there's that sense of like, okay, only certain people can participate in this part, you know?
Right. And in the prayer before receiving the Eucharist, right, I will not speak of thy mysteries to thine enemies, right? So, right, you could point at that. You could point at that and say, see, only the initiated were allowed into the Eucharist. Yeah. Not really a parallel, as we see, but, you know, vague, right?
Okay.
Point at that. You could point at baptism as an initiation ritual.
Right.
And it's not just that. There's lots of initiation rituals.
Yeah, it's got death and rebirth in it. So, hey.
Right. But death and resurrection, right?
Yeah.
So there's kind of something.
Born
right?
again.
You have this initiation ritual. Vaguely kind of something. There's this idea of participation in, like, the elements of the life of Christ.
Yeah.
Right? You're baptized into his death, right? You're sharing this experience. Christ is a divine figure, right? Like, we're being vague, but, you know. Our Paschal liturgics are very much, you know, darkness and light, passing from death to resurrection, death to life, right? There's some of that ritually going on.
Yeah.
If we're vague, right? But
there's the big but.
So there's the best we can do in terms of continuities. Now some discontinuities, aside from all the obvious ones with sex and eating live animals and all that, and drugs. But at possibly an even more core level, right? At a more core level, in Christian liturgics, and any of the specific examples we gave included, right? The experience is not the thing.
Yeah. I think it's really important to underline this, that historic Christianity is not about having a spiritual experience. Like,
yes.
No one cares.
Yes.
Ritually speaking.
Which is good, because
no one cares what you feel, if you feel anything at all.
It's good news for me because I have no feelings.
There we go.
But I too can be a Christian.
Even the Dutch can be saved.
Feel things. Yes.
Right. It doesn't matter.
A Dutch Gen Xer even.
It doesn't matter if you feel it. I mean, if you have feelings, we're not saying it's bad to have feelings. If you have feelings, if you're having some kind of spiritual experience, whatever that might be, that's nice. That can be nice, but it is not critical. It's not the goal. It's not required. And I think one of the practices that really underlines this for Christianity and just shows how the idea that spiritual experience is not the goal, how that's really important here, is that we have babies participating in core rituals of our faith. We baptize them, we commune them, you know, before any of that happens, we bring them in, we church them, and, you know, what are they experiencing? Like, there's no point where they're going to go, oh, yes, I had this big initiation experience.
Nothing they consciously remember.
Right,
yeah.
Right. There's nothing. Whereas if experience was the goal, then we would make them wait. We would make them wait for baptism. We would make them wait for communion.
You had to be, one of the prerequisites to be initiated into these mysteries is you had to be a person who was seen culturally and everything as being capable of having that experience.
Yeah. There's no...
slaves were not initiated because they were seen as being like children.
Yeah. So there's no minimum age. in historic Christianity to experience the core rituals.
It was like adult free men, right? Who were considered capable of this.
Whereas in Christianity, slaves are welcome in, babies are welcome in, women are welcome in, even low class women. Like everybody's welcome in Christianity.
You don't have to put it that way.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Low class women. Wow.
I mean, I'm just saying. Like, probably some of these mysteries, it would be only women of the upper classes. Anyway. The upper classes. Would
no, I know.
Yeah. You know what I meant.
You say like working class. Yeah. Working class.
Okay, working class. But you know what I mean. Like
class.
Like you don't have to be some kind of cultural elite to participate in Christianity.
I think Christian women are very classy. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. Of course they are.
That's
yeah.
And people, this is a term that people should learn if you don't already know it, and that's epiphenomena.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a phenomena, you have a thing, right?
Sorry, I have to use every time you say phenomenon, I have to in my head.
Okay. And you have a thing, and then there are other things which often accompany it, and the things which often accompany it are epiphenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay. So for us and for historic Christianity, spiritual experience is epiphenomenal.
Yeah.
It's something that often happens.
Not required.
But is not the thing itself.
Yeah.
So if you are baptized, let's say you're baptized as an adult. Okay. You're baptized as an adult. You may have some kind of profound spiritual experience when that happens. Or when you're chrismated, received, however you're received into the church. You may have some profound, and often people do have a profound kind of spiritual experience in that. But if you don't, that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Which I think...
Or didn't work.
I think it's really important to point this out because every so often you will see photographs that get circulated on the internet where someone is getting baptized or chrismated or something is happening. And you'll see, lights or whatever. And now I'm not saying that stuff is not real, although sometimes it is lens flare, boys and girls. Sometimes it is.
Orbs. We saw orbs on the video. It's ghosts.
But let's say that flashing lights really did happen. Let's say there is some kind of whatever. That is epiphenomenal. Like if you open up the liturgical books that the priests have, there is nowhere in there it says, and if this is real, then you will see lights. It never, ever says that. Never says that. And so to use that as some kind of proof of your position on this or that controversy within the church is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Not only because of the whole lens flare thing, although, I mean, we have to accept that that's entirely possible. But let's say it really is truly a miraculous thing that you're seeing. Interpreting it to fit your particular ideology about a controversial issue suggests that there needs to be some kind of spectacular experience going on in order for something to be real. And that is not Christianity. It's not.
Yes. That's an easy way to fall into spiritual delusion.
Absolutely.
Because that's what demons can do. They can cause you to see lights.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying that those lights in the photos are demon, or have demon origins, but stop it, people. Stop it. Again, what does it say in the book? What does it say in the canons? What does it say in the scriptures? What does it say in the traditional sources? Stop adding these things on top of it as your authenticators.
Yes.
Sorry.
Also, Tom Hanks's opinion on this does not matter.
Have you heard that he's Orthodox? I heard that he's Orthodox. Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard that too. Did I tell you about my last profound spiritual experience?
Did it involve Tom Hanks?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Oh. So this is a rare window into the fevered processes of my mind.
Ooh. Let's hope they cut this one. I want them to cut this one for a short on the YouTubes.
Yeah. So this is during the bad times of 2020.
Oh yeah.
And I was serving matins by myself.
Yep, we all did that.
And I had just finished the beginning part, and I had made the sign of the cross with the censer over the gospel book, right? And I put the censer back, and I'm standing there, and I'm doing the prayers, and I see in my vision, like a ripple, like there's still incense smoke rising from the altar. And I said, "Wow, this is profound." And I started to smell something. And it kind of got acrid. Then I looked down, and I had set the sleeve of my jibby on fire with the censer while I was blessing the gospel book.
It's the worst nightmare right there.
So don't jump to the conclusion that it's necessarily a spiritual experience.
That's worse than just getting kibbe on your jibby.
Yes.
Which is a professional hazard for us in the Antiochian Archdiocese.
It was actually the lining. And so, like, the lining, there's like a burning ring expanding outward, right? Like the orange, like
a burning ring of fire.
Across the lining, yes. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher.
Yeah.
So take it from me, kids. Prelist is easy. So that's a big issue. That's a major issue. That the experience is not the thing in anything we do, right? Yeah. When you receive the Eucharist, whether you have some kind of feeling or experience or not, you have still received Christ. Period. Full stop. It happened, right? When you're received into the church, whether you feel something or not, or what you feel, you've been received into the church. It's done. It's happened, right? Also, right? So, yeah, the Eucharist is members only, right? But this is not an individual, none of these, even baptism or chrismation, reception of the church, none of these things are individual rites.
Yeah, even if as often happens these days, it's just the family attending or whatever, which it really, it should be the community doing this together.
I try desperately to avoid doing that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens. But.
Yeah. But even then, like, it's still a community thing. It's still the church is doing this. And right. And ideally, actually, groups of people are being baptized all at together. That's what the rubrics, the liturgics, really are kind of assuming in many cases, is that you've got a number of people being baptized.
But even if for some reason, like it was during the dark times of 2020, and you got baptized or chrismated, and you were the only person there, right? What you were initiated into was a persistent community.
That's right.
You are now a member of a community. The mystery cults did not do that.
It's not a higher state of consciousness or knowledge or any of that kind of
individual
stuff.
Basis. Yeah.
Which, I mean, honestly, sometimes people act like Orthodox Christianity is that. Like, you can see this, especially on the interwebs, this sense of like, well, you just haven't read the blah, 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 or, all this kind of stuff. Nope. It's a worshiping community. That's what it is.
The dangerous secrets contained in the Philokalia.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is why we from the beginning call each other brother and sister.
Yeah.
There's
this familial language. By the way, the whole Philokalia thing, right? I know this is a meme in some circles to talk, there are things in there that are dangerous. You should not read it without consulting your spiritual father. Okay, the problem is not that there's something you're going to read in there that's going to make your brain explode or something.
No, I've read it all.
Right, or hidden knowledge. The problem is some of us are dumb enough to try and take that stuff and apply it to ourselves.
Right.
In inappropriate ways and at inappropriate times. That's why you have to talk to your spiritual father about it.
Right.
It's not that it's something that's dangerous to be read. It's what you're liable to do with it. Right? That's potentially the problem. Right. And that's not just a problem with the Philokalia. That's a problem with the rudder. That's a problem with
Yeah.
a lot of the church fathers' writings.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a problem with Scripture, frankly. You can read Scripture and apply it to yourself in dumb ways, right? Like, you could set yourself on fire and think you're having a spiritual experience, right? This stuff happens. So there's also a big problem when we talk about, right, the Eucharist is celebrated in private and it's members only, but Christians go out and try to get other people to become members.
Yeah, we like, for us, the idea that some people can't commune is, a problem to be solved. Right? It's not.
We want to bring you into communion.
Yeah, it's not a feature. We want everybody being in communion. We want the whole world in the church. Every single human person is invited into the church. It is openly proclaimed. This is the essence of the gospel, that it's an open proclamation. There's nothing kind of esoteric about it. This is for absolutely everyone. Again, we let babies in. This is for everyone.
And there's not two different Christianities. There's not like Christianity for the hoi polloi and Christianity for the elite.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And part of that is because there's not an elite.
Yeah. Contra what some people seem to think.
Right. There's just Christians, right? And I know you may be thinking of Gnosticism. We're going to get there. Right? But it's important to note here, this is something I've said before, probably on the air before, that people don't like. And that's that when you go into some kind of quasi-Orthodox fundamentalist situation or rigorous situation, you basically end up verging into Gnosticism on a whole bunch of counts. And one of those is this, and you tend to see this among that unbalanced quasi-Orthodox group. Some of them are members of quasi-Orthodox groups that make a big deal about insisting to you how true and genuine they are, for example.
Yes.
If you have to say that, it's probably not true.
Yep.
That's sort of the equivalent of, I don't want to be blank, but
yeah,
that means you're blank, right? So if you're saying true or genuine, you're not. But anyway, who have some individual or small group of contemporary elders who are basically treated as this kind of spiritual elite, who understand all of these things better than any of us mere mortals could possibly fathom. Right. And that's, that's Gnosticism. But we'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. So what then, if it's so clear, and I think it is pretty clear, hopefully it's pretty clear to you by this point, that there's no real connection other than antithesis between Christianity and pagan mystery cults. What do we do with the Greek terminology, the Greek language of mystery and mystery cultic language that shows up, for example, in the New Testament, which is a thing. It's true. Or that language is there.
Yeah, or the fact that, for instance, our sacraments, we call them holy mysteries.
Yes.
It's we often want to kind of inflate stuff, especially spiritual stuff. But I think a good place to begin is, what does the word itself mean? The basic sense of the word, mystery, mysterion. It just means a thing that's hidden. A thing that's hidden.
Yes.
Right?
And usually in the context of that thing having been hidden being later revealed.
Right. Especially in Christianity, right.
And that's not, that's not just a core element back in ancient Greek usage. Like, think about a mystery novel.
Yeah. It's about, revealing.
There is some secret, something that is unknown, and then by the end of the novel is revealed.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a very good mystery novel,
right,
if it never revealed. I
never found out who killed the guy.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
That would be kind of a lame novel.
Right. So that idea that eventually it is revealed to someone somehow, right, is kind of also there, right? And that's true of the mystery cults too, right? Like, yes, there's this secret stuff, but there are initiates who have experienced the secret stuff, right? Like, it's not still mysterious to them, right? Yeah, and so this is one of probably the most common usage of the language of mystery in the New Testament, right? So you have the mystery, and various mysteries, right, that were mysterious in the Old Testament in previous times, and then in the person of Christ they are now revealed. They are revealed first by him to his disciples, and then through his disciples to the world.
Yeah. Mystery solved.
Right. Right. And so that's the most common thing going on with the mystery language. Okay. And again, we're going to talk about Gnosticism, right? Not Christ had these secrets. He had the stuff he told everybody, but then he had these other secrets that he only told his inner circle. And we're the guys who still have those, right?
Sorry, Gospel of Thomas.
Yeah, that's not historical Christianity.
Right.
That's something else. That is more like the mystery cults, but that's something else. We also have initiation and initiation rituals, and baptism in particular, in the New Testament, talked about, again, not in terms of, now you have personally had this experience, but in terms of, you are now a part of this living community, ongoing community. Right? You have now entered into the church. The New Testament talks about the church a lot. A lot. So if you see somebody from a Christian tradition online who talks a lot about the Bible, and you never hear them really talking about the church, this should cause you to think. It cause you to wonder. And also we have to take into account that the New Testament and some of the early fathers, right, are directly addressing a pagan audience or a formerly pagan audience. They're addressing a pagan audience with the gospel, or they're trying to teach and explain the Christian faith and the Christian way of life to former pagans, right? And so when you're doing that, you're going to use their language sometimes to try to communicate with them.
Yeah, I mean, this is like when St. Paul's on the Areopagus, and he says, I saw you guys had this altar to this unknown God, and I proclaim him to you. Now, if you take that in the most absolute literal way possible, then you have to read St. Paul as saying, this demon that you are worshiping is the demon that I'm proclaiming to you. Because there's no way
all the sacrifices you've been offering, you are really offering to the Jewish God.
Yeah, or
this time.
That or like, because
all the pigs you are offering.
Yeah, that the religious practices surrounding that altar to an unknown God were Greek pagan practices.
Yes.
So if you read him absolutely literally and absolutely, then he's endorsing that on some level. But that is not what he means. He's using the religious language and imagery that they know in order to launch into, if you read in there in Acts, 17, to launch into a point-by-point takedown of all the basic metaphysics of all of paganism, actually. But he's using that language in order to communicate with them.
Right. Right. And Clement of Alexandria does the same thing. Right. It is addressed to the Greeks. Greeks doesn't mean ethnically Greek people. Greeks, when used by early church fathers, means pagans.
Yes.
When there were still pagans around. They just called them the Greeks.
Right.
And so he uses all kinds of mystery cult and other pagan terms in that to try to explain Christianity to them. And this is one of the great problems in bad hermeneutics all over the place in our modern day discourse.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because what do people say about Clement of Alexandria when they talk about him at all? Often he's used to kind of semi-rehabilitate Origen, because they're sort of like, you think Origen was bad with the pagan philosophy stuff. Read Clement of Alexandria, right?
Right.
So it is blanket assumed that because he uses these terms, what he means by those terms is the pagan concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. And
right?
Yeah.
Another example, our Protestant friends. A lot of the way they go wrong in reading the New Testament is because they're using what they call grammatical historical exegesis, majoring in the grammatical part, which means they're reading each Greek word in the New Testament and wanting to interpret it according to its pagan Roman usage. That's how you end up with all this quote-unquote forensic or penal language, supposedly, in the New Testament, is because you're reading it in terms of the pagan meaning, right? What's the alternative? The alternative is St. Paul is expressing Hebraic, Hebrew and Aramaic concepts, Jewish concepts, in the Greek language. So what you would want to do is, for example, hey, this Greek word that St. Paul uses, what Hebrew word is that used to translate in the Old Testament? If I go and look at the Greek translation of the Old Testament. Oh, so when St. Paul uses this Greek word, he means this Hebrew concept.
Yeah, it turns out that, you know, to put it in a brief way, he's speaking Septuagint, so to speak.
Yes,
you know,
right? He's speaking Hebrew and Aramaic in Greek, as are the other New Testament writers.
Yeah.
Right? St. Clement of Alexandria, if he is, it goes back and forth whether he's a saint or not.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not ruling on this. I'm just saying I've seen sources, some of which say he is an Orthodox saint and some of which say he technically isn't. So half the time I call him St. Clement of Alexandria and half the time I don't. I am thereby reflecting the tradition accurately. Right? He's not using these pagan words and concepts with their pagan meaning. Yeah. He is expressing Christian concepts using that language, and so you need to get to the Christian concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
St. Augustine is read incorrectly by almost everyone because they assume he's writing in Latin because he only knew Latin, right? But what he's doing is he is, for the first major time, I might add, this is part of why St. Augustine was a genius, right? Despite whatever quibbles you may have with his theology, most of which are fake because it's not an accurate representation of his theology. But, right, he's for the first time expressing these, for serious time, expressing these concepts that had previously been discussed and hammered out in Greek, right? He's expressing those Christian ideas in Latin, meaning he's taking Latin words and turning them into technical terms. All over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you can't read St. Augustine and assume that by a given Latin word, he means its general Latin usage at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think
he's expressing a Christian concept. Yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure we've endorsed the book on this show before, but just in case, because it's really relevant at this moment, if you're really interested in the way that Christianity takes classical culture and language and so forth and repurposes it for its own purposes, Yaroslav Pelikan's book, Christianity and Classical Culture, is the sort of magisterial work on this. Like, it is the one that really goes into all of the detail. But I mean, you know, like, this kind of thing happens even now with stuff from much later, right? For instance, in the...
Yes.
You know, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century particularly,
which are all centuries I do my best to ignore.
Yeah, right. You know, in
the history of the world.
In this period, in the early modern period, right, you get a number of Orthodox saints who, especially if you look at where they are geographically, right, they are speaking to Latinate cultures that are there. The culture is formed by Roman Catholicism. Some cases the culture is formed by Protestantism, but mostly Roman Catholicism based on where they are.
And the education they receive.
Received, absolutely. And they're using that terminology in order to express the Orthodox faith. And there are people who are misreading them using that terminology and importing, frankly, the non-Orthodox meanings of those words and reading the Church Fathers as teaching, frankly, either Roman Catholicism or Protestantism in one way or another, the early modern Orthodox Church Fathers. Rather than looking at how they are embedded within the Orthodox tradition. And you can always tell when people do this, because when they're giving their big, their big meme quotes, like, look at my meme I made, look at this meme I made, look at this meme I made. And they just dump these quotes from these church fathers.
It's a wall of text and a picture or an icon.
It's a massive wall of text and a picture. And then if you look at the dates and the locations, they're all kind of clustered together in time and space. That's not how the Orthodox tradition works, right? So if you isolate that stuff and then say, well, this is this, and often, again, interpreted in ways that the early church would never have heard of, then you're getting it wrong. You're getting it wrong.
Some of these dunces, when they post that wall of text, if you actually read it, it says the opposite of what they claim.
Yes, right. That is often the case.
Even on the surface in English.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So, I don't want to give too much credit to these folks, but even the more astute of them, right? Even the more astute of them, and this is more some more rent-free living for me, but are just assuming that if an 18th century Russian saint uses a Latin theological term, they mean by it what the Latins mean by it. Which is a fundamental misunderstanding of linguistics, of how language works.
Yeah, to say nothing of theology and history and so forth.
Yes, that's not how language works, okay? You have to determine how a particular author is using a word.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's what makes it even more stupid, is that all of these are English translations of these quotes.
Yeah.
It's not even the original words.
With people who probably are, yeah, exactly. And often, in many cases, translated by Protestants and Catholics.
Yes.
Who are naturally going to use the terminology they're used to in their version of English.
Right, because this is assuming that a word just means something.
Yeah, this sort of...
No matter who uses it, when, and where, and that there's another word in another language that is identical and interchangeable with it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why I say this is a fundamental lack of comprehension of the most basic aspects of how language works, right?
Yeah.
Send your hate mail to Father Andrew.
Send it on down. Send it on down.
But because we point that out, we're modernists.
Yes, right. You're a magisterial modernist, Father. Yeah. Okay. But
I do host the magisterial live stream for modernists.
That's true. That's true. So you mentioned Gnosticism earlier as something that needs to be brought up in the midst of all this. So what do you mean by that? What's going on?
Right. Because if you're looking for something Christian-ish that also looks like a mystery cult, Gnosticism is where you want to go, right? In that you have an elite class of initiates who have a kind of different religion based on religious experience than the broad range of people, right? You also have them perceiving there to be classes of people who are just incapable of religion, right? Or at least of their religion. You have a whole series of cults with parallel mystery practices, the Valentinians, the Sethians, whoever else. There's no sort of, like I said, you've got the levels of initiates, and then a whole bunch of people who are just cut out, right? In the same way with the mystery cults, like slaves not invited, people, right, not invited. So Gnosticism is closer. And now, for this evening's spicy take, not a lot of spice in the Thanksgiving food usually. Some people get a little creative down here with the turkey. You get some seasoning on that turkey. and my wife makes these amazing yams with Kraken spiced rum. Just marinates the yams in it, cooks them in it. But here's your flavor. Let's talk about evangelicalism.
Dun, 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 dun. This is my tribe, you know.
So, we've been talking about not anymore.
Yeah.
Don't go ecumenist on me here. So we've been talking about historic Christianity. Let's clarify. When I say evangelicalism, I do not mean all Protestantism, right? So evangelicalism is not what we might call classical Protestantism, right? Your Lutherans, your Calvinists, right? Evangelicalism is not liberal Protestantism, like mainline liberal, your United Methodists, your PCUSA, your Mike Landsman.
Mike Landsman?
Yes, your Mike Landsman.
That's right. Yeah, no,
I most often encounter him in conjunction with you.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, I mean, it's this movement that came out of the Second Great Awakening, holiness movement, revivalism. Right. And also,
we're not even talking about British evangelicalism. We're talking about American evangelicalism.
Yeah. And just to further disambiguate, evangelicalism as a religious movement and as the way that it works should be distinguished from particular evangelicals who may have their own sets of behavior, their own way of doing things that's not just simply exactly whatever it is the rest of this movement is doing.
Yes, we can hate the sin and love the sinner.
There we go. All right.
This is more hate the institution, but love the people who are suffering from it.
I mean, I have never doubted. I mean, I grew up evangelical. Okay, so I never, ever doubted the sincerity of the people that I was with and their love for Jesus Christ. Never, ever. It was very clear to me how much they love Jesus Christ and are trying to be faithful to him in the very, very best way that they know how. And I think that and I personally believe, I'm not going to dogmatically state, but I personally believe that God will have mercy on people and honor the love that they have for him in whatever context that happens to be. That doesn't validate the context. It doesn't make anything automatic or whatever, but that God will judge people based on his knowledge of everything about them.
Right. And this is not a compromise, right? This is not a sort of like I said, I just drew a contrast between Christianity and evangelicalism. I did.
Okay.
I did that. Right. So that does not mean, right? So that means, I mean, according to therefore a certain definition, as somebody's uncle may already be screaming, if you did actually take my advice and play this during your Thanksgiving meal on the West Coast.
It's your own fault. We told you not to.
It does mean from a certain perspective, you could say, well, Father Stephen, you're saying that evangelicals aren't Christians. Well, according to one definition, they're not. According to the definition of members of Christ's church, which is the Holy Orthodox Church, they're not. If your definition of Christian is a person participating in historic Christianity, honestly, they're not, right? Now, if your definition is like the definition that Father Andrew just gave, if what you mean by Christian is a person who loves Jesus as who they understand him to be and spends their life doing their best to follow Christ to the best of their ability and the best of their knowledge, then yes, a lot of evangelicals are Christians by that definition. Okay? And none of those categorizations I just made have anything to do with who goes to hell.
Yeah.
Zero relevance.
That's frankly
none of the statements I made
say that's frankly
that anybody is or isn't going to hell.
That's frankly an evangelical assumption.
Yes, but that gets read in, right?
Yeah,
that gets read in. So I have made zero statements thus far about anyone going to hell. Okay, it's just how do you define this term, and then does person X fit that definition or not.
Yeah.
So according to some definitions of Christian, yes. Other definitions of Christian, no. Right? And none of those definitions had anything to do with who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. Especially not who goes to heaven, because, the resurrection of the body and all that. Right? But so what we're going to be talking about here is we've been talking about Christianity, right? Not about a group of Christians who are Christians according to a certain definition. And we're going to be talking about that versus evangelicalism as a set of practices, right? And a certain type of ritual life. Evangelicals have rituals, whether they want to call them that or not, right? They go to the same building at the same time every Sunday, right? And do roughly the same things. Guess what? That's a ritual. Right? And that has nothing to do with whether the people there who are Christians under a certain definition, we're not talking about them. We're talking about the system of practices, right? The praxis of this religious group versus the praxis of this other religious group, right? I'm labeling one as historic Christianity because if we're honest, that's just what it is, right? I accepted other groups, right? So classical Protestants would say that what I'm calling historical Christianity at some point historically departed from, right, some key principles of Christianity, okay? So, and that's an argument we could have, okay? That isn't germane here either, okay? So I'm not saying anything about any person listening to this is eternal destiny or any of their family or friends' eternal destiny. I'm saying nothing about that. I am not even really saying who is and isn't a Christian, because that just depends on how you define Christian. I am kind of saying that a lot of these things that people call churches aren't really churches. So just to cop to what I'm actually saying, be mad about what I'm actually saying, not what I'm not saying. So evangelicalism and mystery cults. As Father Andrew mentioned, when we're talking about American evangelicalism, we're really talking about the movements that come out of the Second Great Awakening and the revival movements of the mid-19th century. Charles Finney et al.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at those and the practices and everything, are they oriented toward the individual or toward the collective? We kind of have to say individual. Not just because of some kind of objective analysis forces us, but because evangelicals insist upon it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Evangelicals insist upon it. I can give you quotes, video and audio, of evangelical leaders saying that any group that teaches any form of collective salvation rather than individual salvation is not Christian.
Yeah. I mean, this is the idea that I was raised with. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I can confirm.
Yes.
It is about you and God.
They would say, I'm not a Christian.
Yeah. It is about your relationship with God. Right. That is the thing that really, really matters, is you and Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that is an individual thing. Right. We would have to say, looking at evangelicalism, because this is what evangelicalism itself says, that experience, religious experience, is central.
Yeah. Yep.
To religious identity. Right? And the praxis, we can see in the praxis that the praxis is aimed toward experience. Right? But think about the whole, it's not a religion, it's a relationship thing. Right? Experience is treated in evangelicalism as both the purpose of the ritual, right? So you're going and participating in it in order to have the experience, to engender the experience, and having the experience is what gives the ritual, what gives the practice its validity. Okay? Meaning, you go to church in order to have the experience. If you go to church and you don't have the experience, you don't feel the Spirit moving, right? Then that invalidates the church experience. You're either going to start looking for another church if that keeps happening, right? Or you're going to change the practice of the church because the church is now dead, right? Or if it's spiritual practice in your personal life, right? Whatever your prayer and devotional practice is, just you have a dry spell where it's not producing any kind of spiritual experience, you're going to change that practice up, right? To try to make that happen. You get a lot of moving around from church to church because of that in the evangelical world.
Yeah, I'm not being fed.
Yeah, right? You get jumping from church to church, and you go to the new place, and the new place you start having the experiences again, but then it wears off, so you move to the next one. This is one of the reasons why I'm so glad we have a 1-year waiting period on joining the Orthodox Church, because we would have a lot more people hopping their way through otherwise.
Yeah.
If we just signed up everybody who walked through the door, the average stay would be about 6 months, 3 to 6 months, and they'd be gone. Because you're sort of chasing the experience. The average Southern Baptist is baptized 2.7 times in their lifetime. And they don't practice infant baptism, so that's not one of them.
Right.
Because you don't have the experience, or you continue to experience a struggle with sin in your life, so maybe it didn't take. Right? That's the validation. You have this sort of broad evangelicalism, right? Where you could basically be an evangelical Christian by just identifying as an evangelical Christian, right? Any politician could get up and say that, right?
Yeah.
Even if they were a Hindu last week. We've seen this recently. Right? Like, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to, right? So there's this very broad thing. But then almost every evangelical group has a class of elites. It depends, right, where you're located in this sort of evangelical sphere of who those elites are. So if you're more on the stodgy old Baptist side, right, then your elites are people with doctor before their name.
Yeah.
Seminary professors, guys who have published books, guys who are Dr. So-and-so, right? If you're on the other end of evangelicalism, the like charismatic Pentecostal end, then it's the charismatic, spirit-filled, right, leadership who may be doing miracles and stuff, right? That class of people, right, who everyone goes to receive prophecies and blessings and advice and all of this sort of thing, that they have some kind of access to the Holy Spirit that the hoi polloi don't have. Same thing on the other side, but intellectually, right? But in both of those cases, and critically, those elites, right, are sort of the means through which the spiritual experience that the general run of people can have is mediated. Right? Having the spirit-filled guy show up at your revival is how your revival gets the Spirit moving. And everybody has the experiences. Right?
Yep.
Or having the guy who's spent his life studying the Bible and preaching it verse by verse. I'd really be more appreciated as a Baptist, I think.
You would.
Right? Showing up just like J. Vernon McGee approach.
That's right.
To quote one of the spiritual elites, or to reference one of the spiritual, that guy comes and really brings the word to you.
Yeah,
right?
he really brought it.
Goes in deep, right? And produces, right, this experience in people. with if you're really in the stodgy Baptist camp, no outward manifestation whatsoever, except maybe the occasional
right
during the sermon.
I mean, depending on region, they're permitted some amens.
Yes,
amens,
but reservedly. You don't want to go crazy with that.
Yeah.
So, and of course, there's everybody in between, right? Between those two extremes. But the dynamics are the same, right? You definitely get, and I'm sorry for anyone not sorry for anyone's bubble this is bursting, but you definitely get techniques used to produce altered states of consciousness.
I mean,
long repetitive praise choruses, long periods of time standing on your feet.
Yeah. I mean, literally now, moving lights and fog machines. I mean, this is
droning.
Yeah, like this. Honestly, like this. Part of this is why I left that, because, like when I left, I was working as a stagehand at the time, and I knew very, very well through the use of technique that I could make people feel certain things. Just
tell them about Dave, Father Andrew.
Oh, you want me to tell everybody about Dave Matthews?
Tell everybody about Dave.
Yeah, okay. So I've told this story before. I don't know if it's been on this podcast. There was a summer where I saw Dave Matthews Band 3 times, and it's not because, I just wanted to let her in or have her hold my hand. But no, it was because I was working. And
hold my hand is Hootie, dude.
Oh, that's right. That's true. That's true. Man, I'm just merging them in my head.
This was supposed to be a Hootie-free zone. This is the last time I tell you to tell a story.
A Hootie-free zone. Can I have that as a bumper sticker? Well, it's funny, as I've aged, I've gotten a little bit more Hootie-friendly, which I don't know what's happening to me, but anyway,
you don't even know one jam band from another.
I know. I remember when Hootie and the Blowfish was just like playing frat parties in South Carolina before they were a big deal. So anyway,
hipster.
It's true. So anyway, yes, Dave Matthews Band, and so they always played Ants Marching. That's of course, one of their big hits. And there is at the same moment in the song, there was always a point where a big bank of lights that was facing the house, that is to say the people rather than the stage. At that point in the song, those lights would all come on and illuminate the house. And at that point, every single time, I saw this 3 times in 1 year. Everybody out there goes crazy. Like they have big excited feeling and every time. And I mean, what's inducing that? Literally, a guy like me was sitting in front of a lighting control console and he pressed a button. And when he pressed that button, those people had that experience. Now, they probably wouldn't have identified it as a spiritual experience, but it was clearly an emotional experience at the very least. And let's face it, again, I'm speaking as someone who came from this group, emotional experience in many cases equals spiritual experience for a lot of people there. Like when someone says, I really feel the spirit in the room tonight, what do they mean by that? How do they know that whatever feeling they're having is the Holy Spirit? Like where in the scripture does it say, and you will feel the following, and that should be identified as the presence of the Holy Spirit? Never says that. Never says that. So yeah, for me, this is part of why I left all that, not because I doubted the sincerity of the people involved, not in the least, not for a minute. But I knew
some of the orchestrators.
Yeah, but that I knew that I could make it happen with the professional skills that I had learned working in theater.
Yeah, and this is not something that started out totally sincere and now has become jaded. Okay, if you go and read Finney's On Revival, his magnum opus to end all opuses magnum, he says in there, so this is at the beginning of the evangelical revivalist movement, he says in there that there is nothing supernatural about conversion.
Yeah, it can be achieved through technique.
Yes, it can be achieved through the consistent application of techniques.
Yeah.
People converting to Christ.
Right.
There's nothing supernatural about it.
There's that whole anxious bench, like it's a technique. Now, I don't think that, I don't know Charles Finney's heart. The man's been dead for a long time, but
he was a rank heretic.
But, sure, absolutely. Right. But at the same time, I mean, even a modern evangelical worship team would say, no, this is when we play the music this way, that makes it possible for people to experience the Spirit or something like that. That's
how they're doing it because they have that experience performing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. It's the guys way at the top who are the jaded ones.
Yeah.
The guys you've heard of, the big name guys.
Yeah.
The guys who want your money. And of course, especially when we get into the charismatic end of evangelicalism, there's a lot of ecstatic behavior.
Yeah.
Right. Where people sort of get riled up in the experience, frenzied in the experience to the point that, things get a little nuts. Right. And so you got to kind of conclude there are some real problematic correspondences between evangelicalism and mystery cults. And that is primarily aim of experience, making experience the end in itself. And the type of experience it is always an experience that is ecstatic, stands outside, an escape from reality, an escape from the material and created world. Right? And so we come back to an idea we first floated in the first half, which is that ritual normally is about shaping how we experience and interact with real life, right? With the created physical world in which we inhabit and the spiritual world which we also inhabit, right? So it's shaping that. Whereas the pursuit of experience is pretty much always rooted in running away from that.
Yeah.
Right? No one going to be initiated in the Dionysian mysteries, right, thought that had some application to their job as a Roman senator when they went back to Rome. Right? It was this extreme spiritual experience away from all that, right? Abstracted from all that.
Yep. Well, this has been one of our wilder episodes, I think, especially in terms of the specific content we've discussed. But I think that, you mentioned a number of times Christianity as an antithesis to these mystery cults. And there's two things I want to say about that. I mean, number one, I think the more clearly you see the ancient world for what it really was, the more clearly we can see the love of God for us in coming here as one of us to rescue us from that. Yeah, that's my first thought about that. And then the second thought is that the motivation for mystery cults still exists. It still exists. We're always looking for some other form of salvation or exaltation or enlightenment or whatever it might be. And some people think that you can get that through education. Some think that you can get that, whether that's, formal or, self-taught. Some people think you can get that through using a particular drug, or a particular practice. There's always some kind of silver bullet, something that you do or that you go through or that you achieve. And then you will arrive. Then you'll get there. Then you'll be, what it is you want to be. And of course, a lot of this is being done as alternatives to Christianity. People want to go through this other thing, and that's going to be the thing that will get them there, But there are people who treat Christianity this way, or what they think Christianity is. And I see this even within the Orthodox Church. Sometimes people will pinpoint a particular thing. You need to do this, or you need to say this, or whatever shibboleth they have in mind, or whatever thing that is the switch that needs to be flipped. And then on the other side of that, you're higher, you're better, you've arrived, whatever it might be. But that's not the way that Christianity works. The Lord told us that in this world we would have trouble. And, it's easy to take pot shots at like Word Faith Pentecostals who say, do the following thing and you will have health, you will have wealth, you will have, whatever it is. God wants to be good to you all the time. And you're just blocking it because you're not saying the right things. You're not affirming the right things, right? This is clearly another technique like this, that's easy to kind of point at and say how wrong that is. Why do people want that? I think they want it because they're trying to escape the suffering of this world. They're trying to escape, whether it's physical suffering, financial suffering, psychological suffering, dealing with the ambiguity of this world, dealing with the fact that other people sin, dealing with the fact that I sin. If only I did this, if only whatever, right? If it's always the if only. Some solution. The evil of this world does not have a solution. Christ, of course, came to destroy evil. But he didn't come to give us a fix. He came to give us a way of faithfulness that if we walk it, if we stay faithful to it, if we are loyal to him, if we get up every time that we fall and maintain that, then that way will gradually transform us to be the people that he created us to be. There is no shortcut to knowledge. There is no shortcut to exaltation. There is no shortcut to salvation. There is no shortcut to enlightenment. There's no experience that you can go through that is going to turn you into a saint. There's no experience you can go through that's going to transform your family around you. No, it's faithfulness. It's gradual. It's work. It's work. It's day in, day out. I think it's this desire for fixes that is the reason why so many people, even sometimes entering the Orthodox Church, they can come in and then they flare up, they blaze so bright, so glorious, and then they burn out. It's because they're not actually doing the day in, day out faithfulness in community with the church. Mystery cults promised an underground passage that you could go through, do weird, deeply disturbing stuff down there in the dark, and you would come out a different person. That's not Christianity. Christianity, echoing the words of her Lord, says, in this world you will have trouble. In this world you're going to be persecuted. In this world it's going to be difficult. And most of the trouble, at least for those of us in the comfortable West, most of the trouble that we experience is not other people doing it to us. It's the experience that we have of being sinners. It's something that in many cases we're doing to ourselves. I'm not saying other people are not harming you. They certainly are. But most of the struggle that we have is a struggle against our own sins. So, yeah, I mean, I get the appeal of escape. I've tried a lot of things. I figured if I go through this, if I flip this switch, if I do that, then, but there's no shortcuts. And the reason why we experience the suffering of this life that we do is because God knows that this is what we need to be saved. And to be saved means to become sons of the resurrection, sons of God, equal to the angels, as Jesus said. That's what it means. It's through this faithfulness that we are saved. It is through this faithfulness that we receive the gift of God that transforms us into being the saints that he created us to be. And so I think that this exploration of this weird, dark, messed up subject and looking at its echoes in the modern world, as uncomfortable as that might be. I think that it helps us to see what it means to be Christian, helps us to understand better the way that we should go, and I hope gives us some encouragement for the way as we take this pilgrimage through life. So those are my thoughts about all this.
So, yeah. I always assume that pretty much everybody listening to this podcast is not a monastic, that they're living in the world. If you are a monastic listening to this podcast, why?
That's what I think.
Why are you on the internet for 3 hours at a time? And why this episode of all episodes?
Right, exactly. We do. I will say I am aware of at least a couple that listen. So hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Please pray for us.
If you've made it this far. But that's not most of our audience. Very safely. That's not most of our audience. And one of the problems, I think, that still lingers around, at least in American Orthodoxy, a lot, is, again, we talked about that tendency, that fundamentalist tendency. And I don't think it goes quite that far, but there's a little flavor of, well, the monastics are sort of the real Orthodox Christians, right? They're the spiritual elite class, and we're, the hoi polloi. As if monasticism is a calling, and if you're not called to that, you're not called to anything in particular. You're just sort of, right? Oh, I'm just a lay person in the world, right? Rather than understanding that we're called precisely to the world. That is an actual positive calling to live your life in the world. And it is the most common calling. It is far more common than the calling to monasticism. That's a good thing. It is the calling that Adam and Eve received, who were not called to monasticism, or there would be no people. They were called to what? We've talked about this on the show before. Fill the earth and subdue it. Go out into the world, fill the world with life, and put it in order. And one bit of feedback that I've actually read and spent a lot of time thinking about is the fact that when we've talked about this before on the show, and what it means to be active in the world as Christians, and talking about this calling, fill the world with life and put it in order. We've talked about how men really major in the putting in order side and participate in the filling with life, and women sort of major in the filling with life and participate in the putting in order, is that a lot of our women listeners feel that that's kind of vague on their side. That we have a lot more clarity about the male side than the female side. Part of that is because Father Andrew and I are men and not women. So we don't know what it's like to be a woman. And so being men, right, we're just sort of naturally more intuitively familiar with that side, right? So we understand that masculine side of engagement with the world, with the actual real material world we live in on a day-to-day basis, right? We understand those aspects. The idea that you put up fences, the idea that you defend, right? You part of putting in order, you defend what is holy, what is good, what is pure from what isn't, right? You separate those, you defend it. Sometimes you even have to attack a little and drive off potential threats and invaders, right? That whole aspect, that whole masculine aspect of priesthood and stuff, we're men, we're priests. We get that, we understand that. So, the rest of this, and particularly because of our topic tonight, ironically, since I don't know how many of our female listeners made it this far, but this one's for the ladies. Because I've been thinking more and more about this. What does it mean, beyond the obvious of biological reproduction, that women major in, and their role is filling the world with life? And the reason I think about it in this context of our episode tonight, with all of its grossness, is because what we've been talking about tonight in this way of antithesis with the mystery cults is a flight from reality and a flight from the world, and seeking an escape from the world. And this is opposed to engagement with the world. So let me be very concrete. What I think it means for women as women to fill their world with life means that while men are protecting the fences and creating this space, within that space, women are finding what is good, what is beautiful, what is pure, and what is wonderful about the world we live in and the people in it. All of the people in it, every person in it, and every created thing has something about it that is beautiful and that is pure and that is noble. When St. Paul says whatever is good and pure and noble, think on these things, he's not talking about the Platonic forms and contemplation. He's talking about the actual world that God created and called good. And he's talking about every person in it, no matter how far they've fallen into sin. Whatever is good and noble and pure and beautiful about them. I think this is the concreteness of how a woman nurtures and fills the world with life, is looking at everything and every person, finding those things, that goodness, that purity, that beauty, and nurturing it and cultivating it, and helping bring it forth. Right? While men are minding the borders, right, and the fences, and keeping the threats out, that then makes women free to do that, and safe to do that. Okay? And that is, in our modern world, which is very ugly in a lot of ways. We all see the ugliness all the time. We all see what is dishonorable. We all see what is impure. We all see what is ignoble in our present world. And in which, frankly, a lot of, we've talked before about men abandoning their jobs. A lot of women have abandoned their jobs too, because a lot of them have decided they like the man's job better and they want to do that. Right? It is vitally important for people to be able to live Christian lives, or any kind of life in the world, that there is someone who is finding the good and the pure and the beautiful, and bringing it forth and nurturing it and fanning the sparks and the flames, right, to bring that out and help it grow and help each of us grow, right? Not just within the church community, but within the broader culture, within the broader society, right? Because, men may be great at fighting off the ugly and defeating the evil and putting these things down, but things also need to get built up and grow. And these things need to be brought out. So I hope, in terms of some past episodes, that gives a little more clarity. I'm actually hoping next time we do a Q&A, and I don't know when that'll be, but the next time we do one, maybe we'll some of our female callers will call and interact with us about that. But I also think that in the face of various forms, which, hey, I argue even evangelicalism is basically one of the reemergence of this ecstatic mystery cult idea of spiritual experience removing us from this world. This world is so ugly and terrible, I must escape it. I must get away from it. To some other place, that in the face of that, we bring forth the opposite. And in this case, I think women have a critically important role to play that can't be neglected and can't be overappreciated when it happens.
Amen. Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you very much for listening to this pre-recorded Thanksgiving episode. We didn't take calls this time, but you can still email us at lordofspirits@ancientfaith.com. You can message us at our Facebook page. You can also leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/lordofspirits. And if you have basic questions about Orthodox Christianity or you need help to find a parish, go to orthodoxintro.org.
And join us for our live broadcast on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. You come out at night, that's when the energy comes, and the dark side's light, and the vampires roam.
If you're on Facebook, you can follow our page, join our discussion group there. Leave reviews, ratings everywhere, because that builds a mystery. Most importantly, though, share this show with a friend who is going to benefit from it.
And finally, be sure to go to ancientfaith.com/support and help make sure we and lots of other AFR podcasters stay on the air. You live in a church where you sleep with voodoo dolls. You won't give up the search for the ghosts in the halls.
Thank you. Good night, and God bless you.
You've been listening to the Lord of Spirits with Orthodox Christian priests, Father Andrew Stephen Damick and Father Stephen DeYoung, a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio. And I beheld, and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the beasts, and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000, and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power, and riches, and wisdom, and strength, and honor, and glory, and blessing. Revelation chapter 5, verses 11 through 12.